Chapter 141. Early the next morning, the entire Hogwarts was in turmoil due to shocking news. The Ministry of Magic suspected Hagrid of opening the Chamber of Secrets and had sent him to Azkaban prison. Dumbledore was also removed from his position by the school board. An unprecedented wave of fear quickly enveloped the castle. Despite the picturesque spring day outside, the warmth of the sun couldn't thaw the chill in the hearts of those at Hogwarts. Every face bore an expression of terror. Harry couldn't stop thinking about Dumbledore's words from the previous evening. Only when everyone here betrays me will I truly leave this school. At Hogwarts, those who ask for help will always receive it. He and Hermione had visited Hagrid, seeking the truth about the events from 50 years ago. Unfortunately, their visit was interrupted when Minister of Magic Cornelius Fudge, along with Dumbledore and several school directors, arrived to take Hagrid away. The directors announced they had voted to expel Dumbledore. Harry suspected that Dumbledore had intentionally let himself be discovered hiding, but pondering over Dumbledore's words seemed futile now. Ron had been too sleepy to join their adventures for several days, leaving only Hermione to help Harry investigate. They had gathered some clues, but were uncertain about whom to turn to for help. "Ethan Green," Harry exclaimed. "At this point, he is the only one who can help us." "We should have asked him long ago," Hermione agreed, her lips pursed in frustration. "But before that, I need to visit the library. Our trip to the Forbidden Forest has given me new inspiration." By noon, Ethan was cornered by the two in a corridor. "Ethan, you have to help us," Harry pleaded, grabbing his sleeve. "We think we know what the monster in the Chamber of Secrets is." "Oh, do tell," Ethan said, raising an eyebrow. Harry eagerly shared their findings. "Yesterday, we visited Hagrid. He revealed that the chamber was indeed opened 50 years ago, resulting in a student's death, Moaning Myrtle, who now haunts the bathroom. Hagrid was framed as the culprit. However, we discovered that the monster Hagrid had hidden was an acromantula, which doesn't have the ability to petrify people." "Luzin, so, what is the real monster?" Ethan asked, playing along. Harry glanced at Hermione, who nodded and confidently shared their conclusion. "The monster in the Chamber of Secrets is a basilisk. According to the book, the basilisk, also known as the King of Serpents, is a deadly creature that can live for hundreds of years. It's hatched from a chicken's egg, incubated by a toad. Its gaze can kill instantly, and its fangs are deadly. Spiders flee from it, and it fears the crowing of a rooster, which is fatal to it." Hermione continued, her excitement palpable. "All the pieces fit." Harry could hear whispers no one else could because he was hearing the basilisk, and he's a Parseltongue. The victims were only petrified because they saw the basilisk's gaze indirectly. The acromantulas fled the Forbidden Forest due to the basilisk's presence, and Hagrid's chicken coop was targeted to prevent the rooster's crow from killing the basilisk. Pausing, she added thoughtfully, "Given how simple it is to breed a basilisk, it's curious why there aren't more of them. But why is it that in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, basilisks are mentioned so infrequently?" "Did you know," Ethan began, addressing Harry, "that in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, it's mentioned there are already at least 4 basilisks in Dai Yin. Basilisks haven't been sighted for hundreds of years." Harry, intrigued, turned to Ethan. "Not just any egg can hatch a basilisk. It must be from a male egg." Harry, puzzled, asked, "Do roosters lay eggs?" Ethan clarified, "Actually, if you delve into Muggle biology, you'll find that birds' gender boundaries aren't as rigid as humans. Under certain conditions, birds can change genders. For instance, in the absence of roosters, hens can sometimes transform into roosters. The rooster, in this scenario, possesses both male and female sexual characteristics. With magical interference, it's indeed possible for the rooster to lay eggs." Ethan's explanation left Harry and Hermione in awe. This was their first encounter with such fascinating information. Seeing their keen interest, Ethan continued, "This phenomenon of birthing magical beasts from such eggs isn't limited to basilisks alone. We know snakes are cold-blooded and can't incubate eggs. However, if a snake were to hatch a hen's egg, a cockatrice would emerge. While not as lethal as basilisks, cockatrices' venom can petrify their victims. In an even more unusual case, if a snake lays an egg that a rooster incubates, a basilisk is born. It's a kind of lizard with 8 legs, possessing a gaze similar to a basilisk's. Though they can't kill directly, they can petrify people. Harry and Hermione were astounded by Ethan's detailed explanation. The magical world's complexities were beyond their wildest imaginations. Bringing the conversation back on track, Ethan praised their analysis. Your deduction about the monster in the Chamber of Secrets being a basilisk is quite sound. Well done. Hermione beamed at the compliment, and Harry couldn't help but smile. Praise from Ethan Green was a rare honor. However, have you figured out who opened the chamber? Ethan inquired. We suspected Malfoy, but after shadowing him, we found nothing. Even Malfoy was petrified, Harry admitted. Hermione's eyes sparkled with curiosity. You must have some theory, or you wouldn't have asked. Ethan nodded. Indeed, I've concluded that the current heir, at least for now, appears to be Ron Weasley. This revelation left them pondering the implications, marking a pivotal moment in their investigation. As the author, I appreciate your support. New chapters are challenging to publish, so your votes, comments, and rewards are incredibly valuable and encouraging. Thank you for your continued support. Chapter 142, Ron? At present? Hermione heard this and fell into deep thought. But how is that possible? Harry couldn't believe it and loudly defended. Why do you think so? Ron's family has been in Gryffindor for 3 generations, and he has always been with us, so he can never be the heir. Ethan waved his hand. Perhaps your previous thinking fell into a misunderstanding, believing that the so-called heir must be someone who inherited the Slytherin bloodline. But is it possible that the heir could also be a curse or a magical prop that can hypnotize others or directly control someone to achieve one's own goals? You mean? Harry opened his mouth, but no retort came out. Even he himself realized something was wrong. Yes, according to this idea, it is not just a few purebloods who can open the secret chamber. We can re-expand the scope of suspicion to everyone. And since this kind of hypnosis and control goes against people's original intentions, we only need to find the people who behave most abnormally. Of all the people, the one who behaved most abnormally was Ron. The more Hermione thought about it, the more reasonable it seemed. Polyjuice potion, Ron's performance, his sleepiness. Ethan is indeed right. But Ron was with me when Mrs. Norris was attacked. He had no chance to do that at that time. Harry pointed out the loophole. So Ethan said, for the time being, Hermione took the initiative to ask Ethan to explain. Ron was probably controlled later. When school started, he was very normal. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been stupid enough to fight with you and drive to school together. Harry, why do you still remember this nonsense? Harry thought it over and over, but couldn't find any other reason to refute it. Ethan's reasoning was so rigorous and reasonable that he followed this line of thinking. After checking it again, he felt that Ron was probably the culprit. Finally, Ethan came up with his trump card. When you went to visit Hagrid, I went to visit the centaurs in the Forbidden Forest, and they told me that when the basilisk was wreaking havoc in the Forbidden Forest, they did see a little red-haired wizard. Harry was completely speechless. He believed that Ethan was not mistaken, and the centaur's testimony was most likely true. In the end, he could only say, I'll go find Ron and ask. Then he ran towards the Gryffindor common room. Wait! Ethan shouted, and Harry looked back and saw Ethan throwing an amulet over. In appearance, this amulet was similar to those sold by the Weasley twins, but its craftsmanship and quality were far superior. I'll lend this to you first to prevent you from having an accident, Ethan said. Hide it so no one finds it. With it, even if you have an accident, we can come to save you. Thank you, Ethan. Although he didn't want to believe that Ron was the one who opened the Chamber of Secrets, Harry thought about it carefully and seriously hid the amulet under his clothes. He was not afraid of 10,000, just in case. He waved to Ethan, turned, and left. What about us? Seeing Harry walking away, Hermione looked at Ethan. What are we doing now? Of course, we also have tasks. Call Siri to accompany me back to the tower to perform the wilderness ritual, Ethan said, taking out a beautiful green feather from his pocket and shaking it towards Hermione. It was just delivered this morning. This will be our trump card against the basilisk. Soon, they found Siri in the Ravenclaw lounge, and the 3 of them returned to the oak tree in the tower. Ethan temporarily opened the demiplane allowing this small world to communicate with the entire world, and then returned to the basement. They started brewing the Eternal Owl's Wisdom Elixir. Ciri and Hermione began to prepare the wilderness ritual. Using the last ritual as an example, they were familiar with it this time. Time passed by in the evening, and after the preparation of the Elixir of Wisdom was completed, Ethan held a cyan crystal bottle. Ethan arrived at the foot of the tree ere the preparations for the wildness ritual had been completed. The two girls were delightfully playing with a few little unicorns, with Ruize watching over them. Upon noticing Ethan and the others returning to the tower, Hermione immediately approached them, her excitement palpable. "Ethan, I never knew there were unicorns near your house. You never mentioned them before," she exclaimed. Ethan chuckled in response. "These unicorns just arrived yesterday, and this is Larry, the one I've told you about." Realizing who Larry was, Shirley and Hermione looked at her in surprise. "Hello, Larry," they greeted. Since they didn't know animal talk, they couldn't communicate directly with the unicorns. Larry, in a gesture of friendship, rubbed his head against them. "So how did you manage to bring them here?" Celia inquired. "To avoid the basilisk. Hermione has told you about the basilisk and the Chamber of Secrets, right?" Ethan replied. Celia nodded. Basilisk. I didn't expect such a powerful creature to exist in this world, certainly more formidable than the deer-headed spirit." "Indeed," Ethan agreed. "That's why I prepared this trump card." Hermione, curious, asked, "What will you transform into this time?" Ethan's ability to transform into multiple animagi was unheard of, but given his magical prowess, Hermione was eager to learn which animal transformation Ethan would use to combat the basilisk. "Of course it is! Ta-da! The Eternal Owl's Elixir of Wisdom, Feathered Serpent Transformation," Ethan revealed, showing the crystal bottle in his hand. Feathered serpent? For Silly, this was another unfamiliar term. Hermione racked her brain. "I think I've heard of this. Isn't that a deity worshipped by the Mayans in South America?" "You're thinking of the feathered serpent god Kukulkan, also known as Quetzalcoatl, revered by the Mayans and Aztecs. He's often depicted as a snake adorned with feathers," Ethan explained. "While the existence of such a god in South American history is debatable, feathered serpents are real. It's possible that Kukulkan was inspired by sightings of these creatures." The Quetzalcoatl is a magnificent magical creature, known for its kindness, wisdom, and beauty. They strive to guide mortals on the right path and use their power to combat evil. They could have indeed acted as guardian deities for the Maya and Aztec peoples, Ethan continued. Feathered serpents are unable to lie but can choose to withhold information, provide ambiguous answers, or mislead if necessary to protect something or keep a secret. They can live for centuries without sustenance and even survive in voids. However, they are not immune to disease or the ravages of time. Their mating ritual involves a mesmerizing dance of light and magic, resulting in a gem-shaped egg from which a new quoll hatches. According to various records, the feathered serpent embodies the force of good, holds a degree of divinity, and is the antithesis of the evil basilisk. If faced with a feathered serpent, the basilisk's death gaze might be rendered ineffective. Looking up at the sky, Ethan stood at the center of the ceremony. "I had ordered a feathered serpent long ago, but it only arrived today. After I complete my transformation, we will return to Hogwarts together to eliminate the basilisk threat once and for all." "The Threat of the Basilisk," the title read, accompanied by an illustration of a feathered serpent. Chapter 143, Transformation into the Quetzalcoatl. The moon rose unusually early today, casting its luminous glow at its zenith upon Ethan. As he consumed the Eternal Owl's Wisdom Elixir, crafted from the feathers of the Quetzalcoatl, the transformation that ensued was less agonizing, thanks to a preparatory ritual. Ethan soon found himself morphing into a majestic feathered serpent, measuring 5.6 meters in length with a wingspan of 4.5 meters. In this new form, Ethan bore a dragon-like head and was adorned with a pair of expansive wings. His plumage shimmered in hues of blue, green, and purple, with striking long red feathers accentuating his head and wingtips, creating a vivid and enchanting spectacle. Contrasting the vibrant feathers, his abdomen was covered in golden scales instead of feathers. Ethan could instantly sense that his feathered serpent form was innately shielded from psychic detection, and his psychic abilities were significantly amplified. The feathered serpent's eyes possessed true vision, enabling Ethan to see through invisibility, illusions, and concealed magical forces as if he had mastered the true sight technique. Additionally, he had acquired the capability to wield divine power and cast divine spells, much like a warlock learns arcane magic. However, the source of these divine spells was a broad spectrum of benevolent forces, not tied to any specific deity. Moreover, the Quetzalcoatl form boasted formidable melee capabilities. Ethan's attacks were infused with magical energy, and his fangs carried a potent venom. His reflexes were lightning fast, and the scales beneath his feathers could withstand most conventional melee attacks. As a feathered serpent, Ethan's attributes were as follows: Strength 18, Agility 20, Constitution 18, Intelligence 18, Perception 22, Charisma 17. His abilities included intermediate magic resistance, poison, constriction, psychic immunity, lightning reflexes, divine spellcasting, magic weapon, true vision, and spell enhancement. His spell repertoire encompassed Level 0, Stun, Strike Undead, Light, Freeze Ray, Read Magic, Increase Resistance. Level 1, Endure Environment, Mage Armor, Hidden Mist, Protection from Evil, Defeat the Enemy, Blessing, Detect Alignment, Constant, Shelter, Shield. Level 2, Cure Moderate Wounds, Might of the Earring Ray, Silence, Detect Thoughts, Constant, Lesser Restoration, Magic Healing, Poison Protection, Invisibility, Constant. Level 3, Gaseous Form, Anti-Evil Magic Circle, Summon Monster 3, Create Food, Cloak of Courage. Level 4, Charm Monster, Freedom of Movement. Level 5, Advanced Restoration. Level 6, Detect and Dream. Level 7, Crown of Glory, Transfiguration Spirit, Constant. While the Quetzalcoatl might not match the Chimera in sheer physical combat prowess, its spellcasting abilities were formidable. Although it lacked access to a wizard's spellbook, it had its own unique set of spells, which, while not lethal, offered strong healing capabilities and functionality, proving highly effective against malevolent entities. In the realms of D&D and World of Warcraft, Ethan could seamlessly transition from a wizard to a priest in his Quetzalcoatl form. Upon embracing the Quetzalcoatl's mighty essence, Ethan felt a profound satisfaction. This transformation not only filled a gap in his skill set, allowing him to heal and banish evil, but the feathered serpent's abilities also proved to be an effective counter to the basilisk. Its unparalleled perception abilities neutralized the basilisk's malevolent gaze, and its sacred power was particularly suited to combating such evil creatures. With this transformation, Ethan felt confidently prepared to face the basilisk. To master its movement method was essential for Ethan, especially after experiencing the Chimera's transformation into the eagle and snake forms. Ethan was seen soaring joyfully in circles above the tower, his wings spread wide. Below, the girls and the unicorns watched the sacred creature fly overhead, feeling a profound sense of sacred solemnity. They were also touched by the beauty and harmony that emanated from the creature, bringing them joy. As a divine being, the Quetzalcoatl naturally influenced the creatures around it. Soon, Ethan descended to the ground, where Hermione and Ciri eagerly approached to admire his beautiful feathers and splendid scales. "Touching you is like touching a deity," Hermione remarked, her voice filled with awe. "In my hometown, you could be worshipped as a god and gather followers," Ciri added, her comment reflecting her unique background. Hermione, who had always imagined Ciri's home as a remote village in Eastern Europe, was not surprised by her words. Gently, Ethan bowed his head and plucked a few purple feathers from his body, blessing them before handing one to each of the girls. These were no ordinary feathers. They possessed the ability to calm the mind and ward off evil creatures when worn. Spellcasters could use these feathers to cast Alien Covenant, summoning Ethan in his feathered serpent form. Hermione, in surprise, attached the feather to her purse, while Ciri tied hers to the hilt of her arcane sword. After experiencing the feathered serpent's abilities, Ethan returned to his human form. "Next, let's return to Hogwarts and begin our search for the basilisk and its master," Ethan announced with determination. "Yes, let's do it!" The two women responded in unison. Ethan gathered a few roosters from the tower's chicken coop, stuffing them into his bag before dispelling the mansion technique and leading the way back to the castle. Upon their return, they discovered Hogwarts in turmoil. Professor McGonagall's amplified voice filled the corridors, instructing all students to return to their dormitories and teachers to the staff room immediately. The corridors were chaotic, with students running in all directions and rumors spreading like wildfire. Some whispered of another student's death, not just petrification, but actual death. Others speculated that the monster from the Chamber of Secrets had emerged and was now battling the professors. In the midst of this chaos, Ethan found a secluded corner, transformed into his feathered serpent form, and activated Cloak of Courage, followed by Invisibility Technique. The Cloak of Courage, a level 3 protection spell, imbued everyone in the vicinity, including Ethan, with resistance to fear. He then soared above the castle, his sacred aura and the Cloak of Courage calming the panicked students. Returning to his human form, Ethan retained the effects of the Cloak of Courage as he walked into the auditorium where most of the young wizards were gathered. Using phantom sound technique, he amplified his voice. "Everyone, please calm down." Ethan's voice, bolstered by the power of the mind and the Cloak of Courage, resonated like thunder throughout the auditorium. Hearing Ethan Green's voice, the students recognized him as the genius who had once again brought calm to Hogwarts in a time of crisis. In Ravenclaw, Ethan had already made a name for himself by defeating the Chimera. The feathered serpent had comforted them, and with Ethan's reassuring voice, they quickly calmed down. His accumulated prestige was now evident. "Everyone, please follow the professor's instructions and follow your respective prefects back to the lounge in an orderly manner," Ethan announced. "You must completely trust the professor and the school. Believe me, after a period of investigation, I have uncovered the secrets of the Chamber of Secrets and have a good idea of the identity of the heir. I will work with the professors to resolve this issue. Believe me, the monster that has been attacking students will not cause any more harm." Choosing to stake his credibility on calming his classmates was a risky move for Ethan. It was almost like gambling. If Ethan failed to resolve the problem, his reputation would suffer greatly. However, if he succeeded, his prestige among the young wizards would soar, potentially rivaling that of the professors. This was Ethan's first step in officially building his own influence. Don't worry, students. Don't panic. Remember, you are wizards. Hold on to your wands," Ethan continued. "The threat will be over soon." Comforted by Ethan's words, the students chose to obey. The panic subsided, and they began to cooperate with the instructions. Seizing the moment, the prefects organized the students into groups and led them to their respective common rooms. Ethan and 2 other students then made their way directly towards the staff lounge. Chapter 144. Something happened again. Professor McGonagall addressed the other silent teachers in the staff lounge, her voice heavy with concern. 2 students have been kidnapped by monsters and taken directly into the Chamber of Secrets. At this revelation, Professor Flitwick let out a shriek, while Professor Sprout covered her mouth with both hands in shock. Snape, gripping the back of a chair tightly, demanded, "How can you be certain?" "The heir of Slytherin left another message," Professor McGonagall explained, her face pale. "Just below the last one it reads, 'Their bones will lie in the chamber forever.'" "Who is it?" Professor Flitwick inquired anxiously. With a dry tone, Professor McGonagall announced, "Ron Weasley and Harry Potter." Upon hearing this, Snape stood up abruptly, as if intending to rush out of the room immediately, but Professor McGonagall firmly held him back. "Don't be impulsive, Severus. We must act cautiously in this situation. It's crucial not to let things escalate." Snape glared at her fiercely, as though he was furious, yet he restrained himself. Professor McGonagall then began to issue orders. "Severus, I need you to activate the school's defensive spells. Phileas, please patrol the major common rooms to ensure the safety of our students. I must find a way to open the headmaster's office and contact Dumbledore." Her voice trembled slightly, betraying her effort to remain composed. The school had not faced such a crisis in decades, and without Dumbledore, their spiritual pillar, the situation seemed dire. If not handled properly, Hogwarts might face closure. Suddenly, the door to the staff room was flung open. Lockhart, arriving belatedly in extravagant attire, declared with a smile, "Don't worry, dear friends, I already have a clue, though I can't reveal it just yet. It won't be long before I uncover the Chamber of Secrets." Upon seeing the professor's stern gazes, Lockhart quickly amended his statement. I mean, it won't be long, but I haven't found it yet. Professor McGonagall was frustrated with Lockhart's untimely interruption. All the students have disappeared, and you're still boasting, she thought. That's perfect, Professor Lockhart. We've already assigned tasks here. As for you, tonight presents an excellent opportunity for you to demonstrate your talents. We promise not to interfere. You can face that monster alone. With that, the professors quickly departed. Lockhart was taken aback by their words. Knowing his own limitations, he was aware that he lacked the means to confront monsters. His only option was to flee. Just as Lockhart was about to leave, he was met by Ethan and his friends entering the room. Ah, Professor Lockhart, just the person we were looking for, Ethan said, his eyes sparkling with what appeared to be admiration for his idol. In reality, Ethan had no intention of seeking Lockhart's help to solve the problem. If anyone, Lockhart was the last person he would consider. This annoying man was, in fact, the perfect distraction. After enduring Lockhart's nuisances for a semester, Ethan saw an opportunity for retribution. Professor, we have fantastic news. We've found the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets, and we just need you to lead the way so we can rescue the students, Ethan said encouragingly. Lockhart hesitated, his response meandering. Oh, the entrance to the chamber, yes. Well, I have my own plans, so I can't reveal them just yet. Seeing Lockhart's reluctance, Ethan pressed on. Professor, you are the renowned Gilderoy Lockhart, the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. You've authored so many incredible books, and now it's your chance to save the day, just like in your stories. If you can successfully rescue Harry and Ron from the Chamber of Secrets, you'll be hailed as the greatest professor at Hogwarts, and the Ministry of Magic will surely award you the Medal of Merlin, first class. Unbeknownst to the others, Ethan's words were imbued with a subtle, persuasive power. After hearing Ethan's encouragement, Lockhart then was indeed tempted for a moment, but he was acutely aware of his own limitations. Even Dumbledore, with all his power, struggled to handle the situation. Ethan couldn't help but think that going there would be akin to walking into a trap. All right, Mr. Green, I won't hide it from you. My books are all fabrications, Lockhart confessed loudly, his voice tinged with desperation. There's no way I'm venturing into the cursed Chamber of Secrets. I simply don't possess that kind of ability. Everything in those books, all lies. It's all about deceit, ambushes, claiming others' achievements as my own, and slapping my name on them. Lockhart's complaints grew louder. Returning to school as a professor, I thought I could leverage a relationship with Harry Potter, perhaps bask in his reflected glory. And you, Ethan, a first-class Sir Merlin medalist, such a fortunate young man. But why must these events unfold during my tenure? This is beyond what I should be dealing with. So, you're not coming to the chamber with us then? Ethan inquired. I'm not, Green, Lockhart replied, his hand stealthily moving to his waist. He had witnessed the formidable abilities of the three young wizards before him during the Duel Club event. Ethan had managed to overpower the formidable Snape. Hermione could easily defeat any witch her age, and Cyrilla was capable of subduing a wand-wielding wizard with her bare hands. Lockhart had no desire to confront them. Unfortunately, in a moment of overexcitement, he had revealed his greatest secret without realizing the implications. Thus, he felt compelled to act. However, he was confident in his ability to cast the forgetting curse. By launching a surprise attack and casting the spell, he believed he could make them forget everything that had transpired that day. Having made up his mind, he swiftly drew his wand. Forget everything, he shouted, casting the spell. However, he was met with a sudden sense of resistance and a void where his magic should have been, leaving him feeling nauseous. His forgetting curse had been countered. Before Lockhart could react, another spell struck him on the head, rendering him unconscious. Tie him up, Ethan commanded. Hermione promptly cast activated rope, using Lockhart's own clothes to bind him. She then grabbed Lockhart by the hair with one hand and placed her other hand on Ethan. Cyrilla, with her sword drawn, also took hold of Ethan's hand. Ethan cast advanced invisibility on the group and began to track the location of the talisman he had left with Harry. This talisman was intended to help anticipate Voldemort's actions. Given Voldemort's nature, there was a chance he might choose to retreat, erase Ron's memory, and bide his time. However, there was also a possibility that he would escalate the situation, potentially leading to Harry being taken into the chamber. Yet, Ethan was not overly concerned for Harry's safety. Given his status, Voldemort would not dare to kill him. Moreover, as long as Harry heeded Ethan's advice, the talisman, enhanced by Ethan with a teleportation rune and additional little magics, would ensure their entry into the chamber without the need for any serpentine passwords. Sure enough, it wasn't long before Ethan's face broke into a smile. Found you, Chamber of Secrets. Chapter 145. After a while, Ethan found himself in a peculiar room. The space was vast, and the lighting dim. A few faint flames flickered on the walls, revealing stone pillars encircled by serpent statues that stretched up to support the ceiling, shrouded in darkness. Dominating the scene was a statue, towering dozens of meters high, with an ancient simian face, a sparse beard that nearly touched the hem of its stone-carved wizard's robe, and two large, gray feet planted on the smooth floor. This was the Slytherin statue. In front of the statue, a confrontation between magical creatures unfolded. However, it was no longer a battle, but a one-sided chase. A massive snake-like creature was pursuing a large red bird, while a translucent ghost-like figure stood by with crossed arms, observing the scene with interest. Ethan immediately recognized the bird as Dumbledore's phoenix and the snake as the basilisk from the Chamber of Secrets. The translucent man was, of course, Tom Riddle, the heir to the Chamber of Secrets. The phoenix, agile and capable of flight, seemed to have a significant advantage over the ground-bound basilisk. At first glance, it appeared that the basilisk could only be attacked without retaliation. Yet, this was not entirely true. Despite its inability to fly, the basilisk's immense size, spanning dozens of meters, meant that a few hits from the phoenix did not inflict serious damage. Conversely, the smaller, more nimble phoenix risked grave injury if caught in the basilisk's jaws. Dumbledore's phoenix fought valiantly, even when facing the basilisk alone. However, it was now scarred and nearing the limit of its endurance. Ethan's gaze then shifted to the phoenix's unfortunate allies at his feet. He discovered two corpses, lying there, Harry Potter and his best friend, Ron Weasley, with a thick diary pierced by a silver sword near Harry, and the sorting hat lying limply not far away. Ethan could sense they were still alive, albeit in a dire state, weak and unconscious, as if in shock. Hermione, standing beside Ethan, nearly screamed at the sight, but quickly covered her mouth. The scene raised many questions. Why were they lying there? Why was the diary pierced? Observing the phoenix in peril, Ethan remained calm. He bent down and retrieved his talisman from Harry's body, knowing well that intelligence was crucial in any battle. As he grasped the amulet, the magic Ethan had placed on it activated, transmitting a record from the amulet to his mind. This magic allowed the amulet to record events occurring nearby. Through it, Ethan saw Harry bidding farewell to himself and Hermione, then confronting Ron. Under Harry's questioning, Ron realized he had been under the influence of a diary, which contained a senior named Tom Riddle who had been manipulating him. Before Ron could fully explain, a phantom appeared, knocked Harry out, and controlled Ron to carry Harry to an abandoned bathroom. The phantom hissed, activating a mechanism in Parseltongue, and led them into the Chamber of Secrets. When Harry regained consciousness, he found Ron beside him. Panicked, Harry rushed to Ron, pleading with him not to die. In his distress, Harry recalled the emergency first aid techniques taught in Muggle primary school courses, including artificial respiration. He took a deep breath, lowered his head towards Ron, and hesitated, wondering if he should proceed with the resuscitation. After spitting out a mouthful of water, Harry was startled by a strange voice filled with disgust and contempt. "I didn't expect you to have such a hobby, Harry Potter. Your relationship is closer than I imagined." Shocked, Harry looked up to see the man who had knocked him out. The man was flipping through a diary. "Who are you?" Harry asked. "My name is Tom Riddle, and I am also a student at Hogwarts," the boy replied, closing the diary. "Tom Riddle, you are the owner of Ron's diary," Harry exclaimed in surprise. "What did you do to Ron?" Ron is a good boy. He gave me too much vitality, but left not much for himself," said slowly. Harry, trying to grasp the hidden meaning in Riddle's words, couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You mean Ron is about to Die? Not entirely. The translucent figure shook his head. Not quite. What do you mean? Harry asked loudly. This means that whether Ron is dead or alive depends on your next actions, Riddle explained. Harry struggled to understand. Action. What do you want me to do? Why did you take Ron and me to the secret room? Harry took a step back, tightening his grip on his wand. If you want to hurt your classmates at Hogwarts, then you're just dreaming. I will not cooperate with you, a murderer. Ah, secret room, murderer. It seems you know more than I thought, Tom said, looking very surprised. Your intelligence is beyond my imagination, Harry. It seems you have investigated a lot of facts. But don't be nervous, Harry. If I had wanted to hurt you, you wouldn't have woken up. The reason why I brought you here is because you are the only one I need. Harry didn't feel honored. Instead, he felt resentful towards this person who manipulated Ron, hurt his classmates, and made him bear countless scapegoats. I'm sorry, you must have chosen the wrong person. I won't cooperate with you. You don't understand yet, my silly Potter. Riddle shook his head, smiling broadly. It wasn't me who chose you, but Ron Weasley. It was him who made me choose you. I don't believe that Ron would harm me. Harry's voice was decisive. Stupid Potter, still defending his best friend, Tom said, his smile growing stronger. It's a pity that when your good friend told me almost everything about you, he told me everything. Hearing this, Harry felt a sting in his heart. You murderer, if you dare to hurt Ron in any way. Harm. Tom Riddle seemed amused. I did take some things from him, but like I said before, everything was given to me by him on his own initiative. Hearing this, Harry's voice trembled. So, what exactly did you take from Ron? Oh, this is an interesting topic. Riddle's tone was very cheerful, as if he was talking about his proud achievements. It's a long story. Let's start from the beginning. In fact, Ron wasn't the first person I traded with. My first partner was his sister Ginny. She was a very easy-to-understand little girl. She completely opened her heart to me in just 1 month and provided me with her first life force. But there was only one thing that annoyed me. She was so ineffective in completing my arrangements and was actually discovered during the mission. Although I don't know who discovered her, I had not yet recovered my strength at that time, so I carefully chose to change my master. I started to consider candidates from the people around her, and then I found that her brother, Ron Weasley, was a good target, far more than little Ginny, so I chose him. Chapter 146. In front of Harry, Tom Riddle spoke as if he were discussing his greatest achievements. I left Ginny, erased her memory, and came to her brother, he said. Then I discovered that little Ron was easier to control than she was. He had more worries, so he kept writing his inner thoughts in the diary, telling me everything he wanted to complain about. A poor family, 5 excellent brothers, never needing new things, Bill's old robe, Charlie's old wand, Percy's discarded mouse. Riddle listed Ron's grievances without holding back. There's also the annoying Malfoy, the enviable Ethan Green, the domineering Granger, and his best friend, the great hero Harry Potter. Riddle revealed Ron's innermost thoughts without any restraint. If Ron were to wake up, he would probably wish to bury himself in a hole out of sheer embarrassment. But Tom's litany of complaints was far from over, as he seemed to have a lot more to say. This idiot, why does he have so many worries and such low self-esteem? He is indeed an idiot. He wants to be in the limelight, get good grades, and be noticed like you. But he can't learn the magic I taught him, and he can't finish a book in a month, counting his few galleons all day long. But I patiently pretended to be a close friend, listened to a 12-year-old wizard talk about his childish worries, and even helped him with his homework. You know, when I was 12 years old, I had already gathered a group of friends, secretly learned the knowledge from the forbidden book area, and even began to think about how to conquer death. Riddle laughed, a cold, piercing laugh that seemed uncharacteristic for a 16-year-old. It made the hairs on the back of Harry's neck stand up. Not that I'm bragging, Harry, but I've always been able to charm people at will. So, Ron opened up his entire soul to me, and his life and soul happened to be exactly what I needed, and that's what I took from him. Of course, a good person like me never asks for anything unilaterally, Riddle added. So, I also helped Ron do a lot of things. What did Ron ask you to do? Harry asked, his throat so dry it felt like it was about to burn. Can't you guess yet, Harry Potter? Riddle said softly. Except for that stupid cat, everyone who was attacked was out of his will. This is impossible, Harry retorted loudly. Ron would never be such a person. No, it's possible, Riddle smiled even more proudly. Ron hated that mudblood Colin. He took pictures of you with a camera all day long and affected your daily life, so I attacked Colin. What about Justin? He has nothing to do with Ron. That ungrateful guy, Justin, you showed great mercy and used the power given by Slytherin to help him, but he in turn repaid you with kindness. How could I let him go? As for Malfoy, who is the thorn in your side, so why bother thinking about it? Not to mention he is scolding you behind your back. For you, I have to personally eliminate the descendants of my followers. It's really selfless, isn't it? Listening to him, Harry immediately remembered the time when they drank Polyjuice Potion to trap Malfoy, and finally had to curse himself in order to echo him. No, Marietta too. She must have nothing to do with me and Ron. Harry couldn't defend himself. Yeah, Riddle smiled with satisfaction. But this lady is purely Lockhart's scapegoat. Ron told me more than once that you hate that liar Lockhart. Speaking of this, Riddle showed a malicious smile. Look, in these 4 attacks I was doing things according to Ron's orders, and this is the reward I gave him. And the reason why he did this was because of you, Harry. Even I must be moved by his deep friendship for you. Ron wouldn't attack them, Harry retorted angrily. Yes, of course, this idiot doesn't have the guts to do these things. He only dares to write on the pen. Riddle nodded in agreement. And I don't need him to know. He thought he was just venting his emotions in the diary, but I turned the written words into the attacks I wanted. Other people's wishes come true? It's just like the Black Holy Grail, Harry said, a hint of pride in his voice. But you didn't kill anyone. You managed to kill a Myrtle in the last attack, but this time you were alone. No, you didn't even kill a cat. Soon, the mandrake will mature, and those who were petrified will be revived. Riddle, however, was not irritated. He spoke softly and slowly. Didn't I tell you just now? It doesn't matter whether they died or not. What matters is you. I said it from the beginning. I brought you here because I need you, Riddle continued. I won't do anything for you, Harry replied fearlessly. Oh, that's really pitiful, Riddle shook his head. I'm referring to little Ron. Think about it. Ron trusts his beloved Harry so much that he would bear 4 lives for you, and in the end, because of Harry's non-cooperation. Riddle didn't finish his sentence, but Harry understood his implication. You are so despicable. Harry was furious, his fists clenched tightly. Despicable? Riddle seemed stunned, as if he had heard something ridiculous. You actually called your enemy despicable? Isn't it natural to be mean to your enemies? What did Dumbledore teach you? Does he want to make you a saint? Harry took a deep breath and said, Of course I can help you, but Ron must be released first. Otherwise, I would rather die with you. Riddle looked at Harry with admiration. It seems that Ron is indeed your best friend, right? You may have noticed that my current state is different from ordinary people. I am just a memory, a broken soul that has to be attached to the diary. If I want to be completely resurrected, I need a sacrifice to release my soul from the diary. So, are you willing to become this sacrifice instead of Ron Weasley? Riddle's tone was not threatening. He simply looked at Harry with an intriguing gaze. Think about it. This is the most important decision in your life. Once you make a choice, you can't look back. At that moment, Harry remembered a lot. He remembered meeting Ron on the train, the adventures they shared in their first year, and the magical car Ron drove from the sky to save him from the Dursleys. He thought of them riding to Hogwarts together, studying, playing, eating, and living together. Ron was indeed his best friend. I will, Harry managed to say, each word heavy with determination. At that moment, Harry felt an inexplicable connection with Ron. They seemed to be closer than ever before. But before Harry could indulge in this beautiful fantasy, a proud smile appeared on Tom Riddle's face. Suddenly, music began to play from somewhere in the empty chamber. The sound was ethereal, mysterious, and exhilarating. It made the hair on Harry's scalp stand on end and his heart swell. The music grew louder, and Harry felt it vibrating in his chest. Suddenly, flames erupted from the top of the nearest stone pillar. A crimson bird as big as a crane descended from the sky, its strange music echoing off the vaulted ceiling. It had a shining golden tail, as long as a peacock's, and a pair of gleaming golden talons, clutching a tattered package. The bird flew straight towards Harry, dropping the package at his feet before resting heavily on his shoulder, pressing warmly against his cheek and staring firmly at Riddle. "It's a phoenix." Riddle stared back fiercely. "That stuff," Riddle began. Ethan turned his attention to the tattered object that Fox had discarded. "It's the broken sorting hat from the school," Riddle laughed maniacally. "That's what Dumbledore gave to his guardian. A singing bird and a shabby hat. Harry Potter, do you feel brave? Do you feel safe?" Ethan grabbed the hat and placed it on his head in a rush. Save me, he thought, his eyes shut tight beneath the hat, pleading for help. However, the sorting hat remained silent. Instead, it seemed to tighten around his head as if an invisible hand was squeezing it. Suddenly, something hard and heavy hit the top of Ethan's head, nearly rendering him unconscious. He reached for the top of the hat, attempting to remove it, only to feel a long, hard object beneath. A gleaming silver sword, with a dazzling ruby the size of an egg embedded in the hilt, appeared from within the hat. At that moment, Fox spread its wings and took flight, quickly flapping and hovering above them. Then, something fell into Ethan's lap, the diary. Without a moment's hesitation, Ethan grabbed the sword of Gryffindor and pointed it at the diary. "Let Ron go," he shouted. "I know your identity is hidden in this diary. If I destroy it, you'll die, right? So if you don't want to vanish, release him." Riddle's applause echoed in the secret chamber following Ethan's declaration. "Yes, Harry, you are indeed an astute student, quickly adopting my methods, the very methods you deem despicable. That's probably why you can speak Parseltongue. You're quite similar to me, aren't you? I must say, you'd fit right in with Slytherin." Riddle attempted to distract him, but Ethan remained focused. "Stop wasting time, Riddle. Release Ron, or face the consequences." He stared intently into Riddle's eyes, searching for any sign of emotion, but found only cold indifference. "I must remind you," the translucent wizard sneered, "not all tactics can be replicated by you. Not everyone can be intimidated by you. So go ahead, destroy the diary, Harry. Drive your sword into it." Riddle's response took Ethan aback. It was as if Riddle was portraying him as the villain. "Think carefully. The diary is in my possession," Ethan threatened, raising his voice in desperation. However, his threat was met with even louder ridicule. "Go on, stab me. If you do, I'll die. But you won't dare, will you?" Riddle taunted. "Or are you too compassionate to kill a mere soul, even if it harms your best friend and attacks your classmates?" Ethan's gaze hardened as he faced Riddle's mocking smile. "Do you think I would hesitate? No, you murderer of Ron!" His voice was laden with hatred. He lifted the sword of Gryffindor and plunged it downward. A horrific, prolonged scream filled the air as streams of ink burst from the diary, flowing down Ethan's hands and onto the ground. Riddle's form twisted and began to fade, but Ethan noticed a look of satisfaction on his face before he vanished. Ethan's wand clattered to the ground, and silence enveloped the room, broken only by the sound of ink dripping from the diary. Ethan attempted to retrieve his wand, but with just one step, he felt an inexplicable weakness. That single step drained his physical strength, and his spirit began to wane as well. Darkness enveloped Ethan's vision. Then, a familiar voice whispered in his ear, "Thank you, Harry Potter, for freeing me from my diary once and for all." In the darkness, where he could see nothing, Tom Riddle's figure reappeared. Chapter 147. After Tom Riddle reappeared and Harry lost consciousness, the only scene left in the record was Tom summoning the basilisk to engage in battle with the Phoenix. Ethan, having read this record, roughly pieced together the sequence of events leading to the current situation. It began when he discovered Ginny had been killing chickens. Although Ethan managed to stop Ginny with a sneak attack, he did so anonymously, leaving Ginny possibly unaware of the intervention. However, Tom Riddle, ever cautious, sensed something amiss and chose to steer clear of direct confrontation, leading to the subsequent chain of events. The one aspect Ethan couldn't wrap his head around was Tom Riddle's final resurrection. Despite the diary's destruction, Riddle managed to regenerate. It seemed as though he had been goading Harry all along, almost desiring the diary's destruction. There had to be a rationale behind such a strategy, akin to the logic of wearing leather trousers over cotton ones, and Ethan was determined to uncover it. Now, with a clear understanding of the preceding events, it was time to confront Tom Riddle and his basilisk. Given the basilisk's lethal gaze, Ethan whispered to his companions that they needed to shield their eyes. "Don't worry, even with your eyes covered, I can still enable you to see everything around you." Once they had blindfolded themselves, Ethan also closed his eyes and, focusing his mind, cast his psychic power, Sensory Link. Hermione and Siri were astonished to find themselves with an additional visual field. This new perspective allowed them to see the outlines of their surroundings in detail, including areas that would normally be hidden from view. "Is this your doing, Ethan?" Hermione asked quietly. "Yes, I've linked your senses with mine. What you're seeing now is through my psychic detection vision," Ethan explained. This ability would allow them to combat the basilisk without risking direct eye contact. After completing their preparations, Ethan dispelled their concealment. The combatants in the secret chamber immediately noticed their presence. The phoenix, Fox, recognizing a friend in Ethan, flew to his side, its feathers marred by battle wounds. Ethan had no doubt that had he arrived any later, Fox would have perished. Tom Riddle's gaze lingered on the trio, a smile creeping onto his face as he recognized them. "You must be Ethan Green, along with his companions Hermione Granger and Cyrilla Ray Allen, correct? I've been expecting you." Though Riddle mentioned all three, his attention was fixed solely on Ethan. "I've always wondered why Harry Potter was the only one to uncover the truth. It seemed inconsistent with the capabilities Ron described. It appears Harry was merely a decoy, a test, allowing you to bypass the trap and confront me directly." Tom Riddle, known for his cunning, wasted no time attempting to sow discord among them. However, neither Hermione nor Siri responded, placing their trust entirely in Ethan. Ethan, squinting at the young man before him, inquired, "Are you the one who lured Ron into opening the Chamber of Secrets? What exactly are you? A magical artifact? A ghost? No, ghosts can't wield magic or control a basilisk. So, what are you?" Riddle, ignoring the question, offered, "Would you like to hear how I accomplished this?" He toyed with his wand, adopting an arrogant tone. "I've invested considerable effort and time to fulfill my long-cherished wish. But what's the point if there's no one to appreciate it? Ethan Green, from what I've gleaned from Ron's memories, you are the only one worthy of witnessing my plan." As expected of Voldemort, he was always one to indulge in revealing his grand schemes. The wind danced around Ethan as he felt the advantage in the conversation and decided to set aside his initial reservations. However, Ethan was genuinely curious about the world line. The child version of Voldemort had introduced a new element of fun for him, so he nodded eagerly. "Of course, I can't wait." As he spoke, he tapped the floor with his wand, skillfully using a transformation spell to conjure a set of sofas and a coffee table out of thin air. He then gracefully seated himself and his companion on the sofa. "But before we start, do you mind if I prepare some snacks?" Although Ethan phrased it as a question, he didn't wait for an answer. He promptly took out a set of Yunnan black tea with lemon and 3-color quicksand custard buns from his wallet, placing them in front of everyone, not forgetting to offer a portion to Riddle. Despite Riddle being a spirit and unable to consume tea or snacks, Ethan's actions seemed to disregard this fact. Riddle was visibly frustrated by their casual preparation for tea, as if he wasn't there. He had just agreed to share his story, and now found it difficult to retract his offer without embarrassing himself. Reluctantly, he suppressed his anger and watched them leisurely enjoy their tea, deciding to maintain his dignity. Little did he know, Ethan had fully sensed his suppressed frustration. "Humph, if you think you can outdo us in showing off, you're still far behind," Ethan thought to himself. After taking his first sip of tea, Ethan gestured invitingly. "Come on, young man, tell your story." "Damn, I'll just let you enjoy this moment a bit longer," Tom Riddle muttered, holding back his anger as he began to recount his most cunning plan. "First of all, I must clarify a huge misunderstanding about me. I am not a ghost, nor am I a mere magical artifact. My name is Tom Riddle, a fragment of my soul that was banished by a great wizard in my teenage years. He trapped me in a diary forever." Tom Riddle, I've heard that name before. He once won the Hogwarts Special Contribution Award. I saw his name in the trophy room. So you're a fragment of his soul? Hermione interjected, revealing her knowledge and showing surprise. Riddle, pleased with her reaction, confirmed, yes, that was the case until a few minutes ago. But now I have been resurrected and have acquired a new special body capable of housing my fragmented soul. Resurrecting a soul fragment was no small feat, but Riddle explained it was relatively straightforward, requiring only 2 steps. Absorb a significant amount of life force to nourish my soul, and then use a specific method to break the diary's shackles and release my soul from its confines. What special method? Hermione inquired. The method is simpler than you might think, Riddle said with a chuckle. After years of study, I realized there was only one way from the beginning. Even Ron could think of it. That was to destroy the diary. Destroy the diary? But wouldn't that mean you'd be destroyed as well? Shilly pointed out the dilemma. Indeed, you're quite knowledgeable about magical artifacts. If the diary were destroyed directly, I would vanish into ashes. That's why I needed a method to protect myself when the diary was destroyed, Riddle explained. And what method is that? Ethan asked, intrigued. Riddle's expression turned proud. Ethan, this is where it gets truly fascinating. It's somewhat dramatic and tragic. You might not believe it, but my inspiration came from Dumbledore, the greatest white wizard who always kept a wary eye on my troublesome spirit. Riddle's tone carried a mix of resentment and rebellion, like a child seeking recognition from a distant father. He once spoke highly of and admired the magic of love. The magic of love? Ethan echoed, intrigued. Yes, Riddle's pride grew. It's an ancient protective magic. The guardian can sacrifice themselves to protect the ones they love from mortal harm. And I used this magic, along with the great love Dumbledore always advocated, to protect my soul at the moment when the diary was destroyed. The diary was destroyed, Riddle declared. Before conquering death, I conquered the object of Dumbledore's affection. His laughter echoed wildly through the chamber, causing the dark space to tremble slightly, as if 10 riddles were laughing in unison. The sound was filled with a joy akin to that of a rebellious teenager who had finally defeated his father, proving his future potential. Ethan couldn't think of any other reason for Riddle to take such pride in this seemingly minor victory. The relationship between the two was indeed twisted. Chapter 1148. So, who cast this spell for you? Ethan asked, his tone dripping with skepticism. He couldn't help but question the likelihood of anyone genuinely falling in love with the person before him, given his notorious reputation and disagreeable personality. With all due respect, it's hard to imagine anyone truly falling for you. Surely, you haven't deceived someone vulnerable, have you? Riddle's voice sharpened in response, betraying a hint of vulnerability beneath his proud facade. I, the great Tom Riddle, have no need for such trivial emotions as love. I don't require others' affection to achieve my desires. Ethan almost let out a mocking retort, sensing he had struck a nerve. However, curious about Riddle's methods, he restrained himself and asked, "How did you manage it without anyone's love?" "By exploiting Ron," Riddle revealed, his tone cold. "I traded his life force, linking my existence to his for several months. I could have drained his life completely, leaving nothing but a shell, but I chose to maintain a basic connection to his life, using it as a shield. This connection, however, was precarious. Destroying the diary would mean my end, but the magic of love operates differently. If someone were to sacrifice their life for Ron, that protective magic would extend to me through our bond. And that person was Harry Potter. His profound love for Ron led him to willingly invoke this ancient protective magic tonight, all because of a few manipulations on my part." The revelation that Harry's love for Ron was so strong it could be considered magical left Ethan and the others bewildered. "Thus, I exploited Harry Potter, making him pay the ultimate price to shield me," Riddle concluded, a hint of triumph in his voice as he stood, setting aside the untouched teacup. "The diary was destroyed, but I survived." "Yet, Harry isn't dead either?" Ethan asked, puzzled. "That is indeed curious," Riddle admitted, frowning. "It's as if he's destined not to die by my hand, much like when he was a baby. By the way, you're still unaware of my true identity." With a smug smile, Riddle waved his wand, spelling out Tom Marvolo Riddle in the air. Another flick of his wand rearranged the letters, but to his horror, they spelled out, Mr. Tom, a dildo lover. Furious and humiliated, Riddle demanded, "Who's responsible for this?" For 50 years, Riddle had been confined within the diary, a Horcrux, plotting his resurrection. He had absorbed enough emotion and magic, using Harry as a shield to break free. Finally, in a position to boast about his true identity and revel in the fear it should invoke, his moment was ruined by a humiliating prank. The atmosphere, previously charged with danger and revelation, shifted abruptly as Riddle's anger flared, a stark contrast to the cool demeanor he had attempted to maintain. The atmosphere, once tense and chilling, had taken a humorous turn. Hermione and Siri couldn't contain their laughter any longer. After Ethan Green and his companions had forcibly knocked Sue unconscious and brought him to the secret room, Sue had been shivering in a corner upon waking up. Even Gilderoy Lockhart, who was trembling, couldn't help but laugh at this moment. "I make you laugh!" Riddle, visibly angered, waved his wand and shouted, "Back off the enemy 3 feet." With a loud bang, Lockhart, who had just regained consciousness, was sent flying 4 to 5 meters away by the force of the spell, crashing into a wall and losing consciousness once more. "Why hit me?" Lockhart exclaimed as he was propelled through the air, only to be silenced as he collided with the wall. The reason was simple. Among those present, Lockhart was the most vulnerable. His laughter was the loudest, making him an easy target for Riddle's frustration. Ethan and his companions were far more formidable, and Riddle knew he couldn't subdue them with a single move. Thus, he vented his anger on Lockhart instead. Then, Riddle's gaze returned to Ethan. Ethan was likely the only one among his adversaries capable of disrupting Riddle's spells from a distance, a feat that deeply humiliated him. "Levin Green, who gave you the courage to perform such tricks in front of me?" Riddle glared at Ethan, his voice stern. "Or is it because you're unaware of my identity, and that's why you don't fear me? Pledge your allegiance to me now, and I'll spare your life." "Allegiance? To you?" Ethan's response was immediate and firm. After understanding Riddle's actions, Ethan found no reason to hold back. "Don't assume your identity is a secret. You're nothing but Voldemort." Ethan's tone was dismissive, likening Riddle to an insignificant piece of trash. 16-year-old Voldemort. "Tom, who do you think you are, to demand my allegiance? Do you truly believe you're worthy?" Ethan continued, "But if you surrender now and hand over the basilisk, I might spare your life." Facing Tom Riddle, Ethan was brimming with confidence. Riddle had been a prodigy from a young age, which led him to become the second Dark Lord. His talent was undeniable, having achieved remarkable feats during his time at Hogwarts and attracting a following among the Slytherin students. The notion of completing a 7-year course in just 1 year was unheard of for most, earning him the title of a learning monster. However, Riddle had never encountered someone like Ethan, who operated outside the conventional rules and expectations. Riddle's understanding of Hogwarts and its inhabitants came solely from Ron's memories, which hardly did justice to Ethan's capabilities. To Riddle, the idea of fearing a Muggle-born genius was unthinkable. "Since you refuse to obey, I have no other choice," Riddle said, his tone laced with regret. He gestured, and the basilisk slithered towards him obediently. Then Ethan heard Riddle's hissing command, "Kill them!" Chapter 149. After receiving the Master's command, the basilisk lifted its enormous head and charged towards the trio standing before it. This monstrous creature, spanning over 15 meters in length and with a girth surpassing that of the largest barrel, attacked with a precision and silence surpassing the deadliest of snakes, truly earning its title as the King of Serpents. Riddle was well aware that his adversaries had anticipated the presence of the basilisk, as evidenced by their blindfolds. This choice, while protective against the creature's lethal gaze, significantly impaired their primary sense for navigation and detection. Yet the basilisk, a master of stealth, remained a lethal threat even without the advantage of sight. Unbeknownst to Riddle, Ethan possessed a unique ability known as psionic power, which he utilized not only to sense the incoming danger, but also to share this sensory information with Hermione and Siri, enabling them to evade the basilisk's strike with astonishing precision. Ethan, however, did not move. Just as Riddle was convinced of Ethan's imminent demise, an extraordinary transformation occurred. Ethan's form expanded, morphing into a magnificent feathered serpent with wings, a creature far smaller than the basilisk but agile in the air. This transformation left Riddle dumbfounded, as he had been led to believe Ethan's animagus form was that of a giant eagle, not the mythical Quetzalcoatl. While Riddle was caught in his astonishment, Hermione and Ciri wasted no time in launching their attack. Hermione's spell, Expelliarmus, was swift and aimed directly at Riddle, who managed to deflect it despite its lack of power. However, the true threat came from Ciri, who had enhanced her speed with an acceleration spell from the outset. Her enhanced agility allowed her to close the distance in a blink, her arcane sword aimed straight at Riddle's forehead. Caught off guard, Riddle could only attempt to sidestep, scoffing at the use of a traditional blade against his ghost-like form. Yet, his mockery was cut short as Ciri revealed the sword was enchanted, retorting with a modern twist on weaponry that left Riddle speechless and vulnerable to Hermione's subsequent spell, Stupefy. Ciri continued her assault, preparing another enchantment while Hermione, having benefited from Ethan's rigorous training, demonstrated a prowess that, despite her lack of raw power, posed a significant challenge to Riddle. Her spells, though not overwhelmingly powerful, were sufficient to disrupt Riddle's balance, creating openings for Ciri's relentless attacks. Riddle, struggling to fend off the combined magical and physical onslaught, found himself overwhelmed by the duo's coordination and speed. Despite his extensive experience in magical duels, Riddle was unprepared for the ferocity and precision of their assault, a testament to their training and determination. Ethan, a swordsman, found his dodging techniques, which he had considered exquisite, to be full of flaws in front of Ciri. The edge of her arcane sword appeared precisely where he dodged, striking him accurately on the shoulder. As an incorporeal being, Ethan wouldn't be disabled by the chop, but the magic-inflicted damage was real. He felt a heavy force slamming into his shoulder like a battering ram, making him feel as though he would turn to powder. Of course, his incorporeal form wouldn't actually turn to powder, but his appearance became much darker and more transparent. Eventually, Ethan could no longer withstand the relentless two-on-one assault. He prided himself on being a young genius and a master of dark magic, yet he had underestimated the two young women before him. Despite being blindfolded, they struck with precision, especially Cirilla, whose surging magical power rivaled his own. Another blow like the one she had delivered, and he feared he would be annihilated. Ethan didn't realize that, although he was a young Dark Lord, Cirilla was also an emerging savior, a rare source of magic in the world of demon hunters and a natural sorcerer. In terms of magical talent, she was even stronger than him. However, her control over her powers was less refined. Hermione, while not a savior, was still a formidable force in her own right. Ethan knew he could only take advantage of her youth for so long. Once she reached the age of 16, with Ciri's support, he would stand no chance against them. In comparison, although Voldemort was the ultimate villain, Ethan was merely a little clone of him. Now facing two heroines alone, Ethan's earlier complacency quickly turned to desperation. After only 2 rounds, he transformed into a burst of black smoke, retreating and shouting for the basilisk to stop toying around and kill them. However, upon observing the basilisk, Ethan realized he had misjudged the situation. The feathered serpent, surrounded by sacred power, caused the basilisk unbearable pain whenever it came close. The basilisk had to endure the pain of the anti-evil magic circle to engage in battle, yet its attacks were ineffective against the serpent. The feathered serpent's agility far surpassed that of the basilisk, rendering its attacks futile, while its own attacks, imbued with divine power, penetrated the basilisk's tough skin, inflicting severe damage. In just a few rounds, the basilisk was overwhelmingly defeated, bearing severe wounds. The phoenix, having regained its strength, flew nearby, chirping in support of the feathered serpent. The matchup was heavily in favor of the feathered serpent. The basilisk's murderous gaze and powerful physique were countered by the feathered serpent's spiritual power and agility. The basilisk's thick scales and rough skin were no match for the serpent's enchanted attacks that ignored defenses. As a creature of evil, the basilisk was naturally overpowered by the Quetzalcoatl, a symbol of the forces of good. Every advantage the basilisk held was nullified by the Quetzalcoatl, leading to a situation where the basilisk, despite its size and strength, was utterly dominated. The serpent was pressing down on a 15-meter-long basilisk. The damage from the melee combat was compounded by the continuous damage from the anti-evil magic circle. Despite the basilisk's thick skin, it was only a matter of time before it would be defeated by the feathered serpent. Created by Slytherin and having served the Slytherin family for thousands of years, the basilisk had never encountered such a challenging battle. Just when it could no longer bear the fight and attempted to flee, its master's call sounded, granting it a momentary reprieve. However, Ethan, having transformed into a feathered serpent, was not willing to let it escape. Crown of Glory. The feathered serpent summoned the power of brilliance, and a crown emitting a brilliant and blazing golden light formed atop its head. The light was so dazzling that approaching it was akin to looking directly at the sun from a close distance, causing the basilisk to be immediately dazzled and nearly blinded. In pain, the basilisk closed its eyes, losing even its deadly gaze. Seizing the opportunity, the feathered serpent lunged at the basilisk, landing beside it before transforming back into human form in the blink of an eye. Ethan then swiftly opened his pocket and took out 7 or 8 roosters. "You actually have a rooster." "No, it turns out you were the one who saved Ginny." Upon seeing the familiar rooster, Riddle realized that Ethan had been cautious from the start, knowing well that the crowing of a rooster was fatal to the basilisk. Unfortunately, Riddle had retreated too far to intervene. With the basilisk temporarily incapacitated, Ethan used his druidic powers to control the attack. The roosters crowed in unison, their sounds echoing through the dark underground chamber. The basilisk, blinded and disoriented, responded with a series of frantic hisses. The pain was so intense that it writhed on the ground, its screams almost suffocating. Its massive body, 15 meters in length, was racked with agony. Ethan, alarmed by the basilisk's violent reaction, quickly moved the rooster away. However, the roosters continued to crow, and the basilisk's pain intensified. The wounds Ethan had inflicted earlier began to bleed anew, and even previously unharmed areas started to bleed, soon forming a small stream. Under the relentless crowing, the basilisk was on the brink of death. Meanwhile, outside the castle, the darkest part of the night was giving way to dawn. On the horizon, the sun of a new day quietly heralded the arrival of dawn. Chapter 150. Cut out the bone. Raging fire. Thunderbolt explosion. Tom Riddle was in a state of panic. His basilisk, which he had relied on heavily, was not only failing to support him, but was also being brutally defeated by his opponent. In a desperate attempt to turn the tide, Riddle unleashed a barrage of powerful dark spells, hoping to break through and assist the basilisk. However, his opponent had transformed into a feathered serpent, a form that completely overpowered the basilisk. To make matters worse, the appearance of a rooster, known to be fatal to a basilisk, indicated that his adversary had anticipated the presence of the basilisk and had prepared accordingly. Realizing the futility of his current strategy, Riddle decided on a new approach. To switch opponents, he would take on the feathered serpent himself, allowing the basilisk to overpower the two girls. This seemed to be the most effective strategy he could devise. As long as I can get to that place, he thought, frustrated by his inability to break through. However, his efforts were in vain, as a figure stood resolutely in his path. The girl wielding a long sword was a mystery to Riddle. He couldn't comprehend how the sword was crafted, but its ability to slice through his spells was astonishing. Such exquisite swordsmanship and a weapon capable of defying the laws of magic were beyond his understanding. Unknown to Riddle, his opponent was not just a gifted wizard and a powerful druid, but also a top alchemist capable of refining the Philosopher's Stone. Ethan's encounter with the Philosopher's Stone had elevated his alchemical skills to a level on par with the Masters, and his hands-on experience in crafting the stone had deepened his understanding of alchemy's essence. This knowledge enabled him to imbue magic items with extraordinary properties. After receiving the Arcane Sword 2.0, Ciri was fully aware of the artifact she wielded. Ethan had infused the blade with a series of spells, including the Iron Armor Curse, Counterspell, and Anti-Magic Field, with the Iron Armor Curse, serving as the core. These enchantments transformed the Arcane Sword 2.0 into a formidable anti-magic weapon. Although primarily designed for magic warriors, Ciri discovered that by channeling magic power into the blade in a specific manner, she could activate its anti-magic capabilities. The more magic she infused, the stronger its resistance to magic became, allowing her to counteract spells cast by her enemies. I will cut through every spell you cast. I, Ciri Lelean Lun, am a descendant of ancient magic. My innate magical power is unmatched by many in this world, Ciri thought, her confidence unshaken. Riddle, unaware of the true power he was facing, found himself at a significant disadvantage. Among his arsenal of dark magic, only the conjured sharp fire posed a challenge to Ciri. However, Hermione quickly deduced that the fire's potency stemmed from dark magic enhancement. Together, she and Ciri employed protection from fire damage and anti-evil magic circle spells to neutralize the threat effectively. Despite Riddle's resistance, he could only watch in despair as the basilisk met its end to the sound of the rooster's crow. As the battle concluded, Riddle, Ciri, and Hermione ceased their actions, turning their attention to Ethan, who approached with the aura of one who had vanquished the basilisk. They knew the battle was over, and victory was theirs. Ciri and Hermione exchanged glances, then moved to stand beside Ethan, forming a united front against Riddle and the looming threat of the Phoenix. Hovering in the sky, Tom Riddle, who was once the epitome of arrogance, now appeared weak, pitiful, and helpless. I underestimated you, Mudblood. At the end of his life, Riddle abandoned all pretense of grace. The elegance he once prided himself on as the Slytherin heir was gone, replaced by unbridled swearing and cursing. I didn't expect you to deduce the true identity of the monster in the Chamber of Secrets in advance, nor did I anticipate our magical animagus transformation. And these two followers of yours, you're fortunate. The ones you've found are far stronger than the useless subordinates I had back then. Riddle's voice was filled with excuses for his failure, making him resemble a sore loser. Ethan simply shook his head. In the end, victory is victory. It has nothing to do with blood or luck. My strength surpasses yours, making my victory over you inevitable. Ethan is right, Hermione added. You only see that we are stronger than your men were, but you fail to realize that I am the mudblood you disdain. My power comes from Ethan's careful guidance. Sheely brandished her long sword. This sword was given to me by him. Oh my, it's indeed flattering to be regarded so highly by them. There's a saying about them. One is 16 years old, the other 13. One is the destined savior, and the other is also a leading character. They managed to join forces to suppress Voldemort at his prime, not just with Ethan's help, but through their own talent and effort as well. Now, in front of Voldemort, they humbly credited their achievements to Ethan, a gesture that spoke volumes of their affection for him. Listening to the praises from the two women and seeing Riddle's face contort with jealousy, Ethan maintained a calm exterior, but internally, he was filled with joy. Tom Riddle, let's end this without mercy, Ethan said calmly, staring at the young Voldemort. If you have no backup plan, just put down your wand and surrender. No, I do have a backup plan. As he spoke, Riddle transformed into black smoke, quickly moved to Harry's side, pointed his wand at his head, and shouted at Ethan, Now, move aside, or I will kill him. You don't want to watch him die, do you? Ethan was momentarily stunned, then burst into laughter. Ha! I never thought you, Tom Riddle, would be driven to such desperation. He looked at the dark wizard before him and said in a grave tone, Then go ahead, kill him. If you do, I'll have to live with the pain of having killed a classmate, face the condemnation of my conscience, and I won't be able to look Dumbledore in the eye. You wouldn't dare, would you? Or perhaps, Riddle, you have a kind heart? Unwilling to murder an innocent teenager, even if it means the destruction of your own body and the downfall of the Death Eaters. Ethan taunted Riddle, almost daring him to commit the act. While speaking, his left hand tightly gripped Hermione's wand-holding hand, signaling her to remain calm. Ethan's provocative threat left Riddle stunned, evoking a sense of déjà vu. The next moment, Riddle raised his wand and said in a sinister tone, Do you think I would hesitate? No, you foolish mudblood. Avada Kedavra! A green light illuminated the Chamber of Secrets. Chapter 151. The moment Hermione saw Riddle casting the killing curse on Harry, she nearly let out a scream. She had thought Ethan, who was always so calculating, had miscalculated this time. She feared she was about to lose a friend. However, when the curse struck Harry's forehead, it rebounded like light off a mirror, striking Riddle with full force. Riddle, filled with murderous intent and hatred at the moment he cast the curse, had not anticipated his own spell, powered by such dark emotions, would backfire. In an instant, Riddle was hit as if by lightning. His spectral form froze, then cracked like shattered glass, and in the next moment disintegrated into nothingness without even a scream. Hermione and Siri were dumbfounded by this miraculous turn of events, but Ethan was all smiles, finding immense joy in Voldemort's folly. The girls couldn't believe what had just happened. Ethan, you knew this was going to happen, didn't you?" Hermione asked, after making sure Voldemort's soul was truly gone. Ethan's earlier provocation, seemingly urging Voldemort to attack Harry, now made sense to her. Without knowing Ethan well, one might think there was a deep-seated vendetta between them. Of course, to think Riddle believed threatening me with Harry would work is the most ludicrous thing he's ever done, Ethan explained, seeing the confusion on their faces. He then shared a piece of wizarding history. "This isn't the first time something like this has happened. How do you think Voldemort originally died?" Hermione, recalling her studies, answered, "The Dark Lord's curse rebounded when he tried to kill Harry. That's why Harry is known as the boy who lived." Ethan nodded, elaborating on the magic of love. Lily Potter's sacrificial protection for Harry was meant to last until he came of age, making him invulnerable to Voldemort's attempts on his life. Voldemort's ignorance of this protection led to his first downfall. Now, Riddle, sharing the same soul as Voldemort, repeated the same mistake, underestimating the power of love that Dumbledore always emphasized. The revelation left the women in disbelief. Voldemort had fallen into the same trap twice, making him arguably the most foolish villain in wizarding history. The irony was not lost on them, nor was the fact that Harry now sported not one, but two lightning-shaped scars. Ethan mused on the possibility of these scars accumulating over time, joking about the potential for a 2-star scar. With the threats of the Basilisk and Voldemort now behind them, it was time to address the aftermath. Ethan handed his bag to Shirley, who skillfully dissected the Basilisk's body, a task made easy by her Witcher training. Meanwhile, Ethan and Hermione administered restorative potions to Harry and Ron. With Voldemort's demise, Ron's life force was restored. After consuming the potion, Ron groaned and sat up, signaling the beginning of their recovery. The same was true for Harry. His fainting was purely because he had to endure the damage on Riddle's behalf. Now that Riddle was eliminated, he was starting to recover. Upon waking up, the first thing they saw were the 3 Ethans, followed by the sight of the Basilisk's corpse, which was being skinned. They were astounded. "You actually killed the Basilisk!" Harry exclaimed, shocked. "How did you manage to kill it? This is unbelievable." "It was a rooster. I prepared a rooster." Ethan pointed to the chickens that were pecking around the secret chamber, looking for insects and ants. "Actually, I caught Ginny attempting to kill Hagrid's rooster before Halloween, and I managed to save the rest." "Ginny? What happened to her?" Ron, who had been crying and expressing remorse, suddenly perked up at the mention of his sister's name. Ethan then explained that Ginny was the first host of the diary. "Damn that mysterious man. Did the Weasley family offend you in some way? Why are you always targeting our family?" Ron cursed after hearing this. Ethan chuckled. Ron was unaware of the deep-seated grudge between the Weasley family, and Voldemort. Their mother, Molly, had 2 brothers who were killed by Death Eaters. Furthermore, in the original story, his brother Fred died in a battle with the Death Eaters, and the eldest brother, Bill, was nearly turned into a werewolf. The animosity between the 2 sides was long-standing. After some time, Siri finished dealing with the Basilisk, and Ethan meticulously collected the Basilisk's bones, ensuring not a single piece was wasted. Creatures like the Basilisk were exceedingly rare, so it was important not to let any part go to waste. In addition, Ethan also gathered the Sorting Hat, the diary, and the Sword of Gryffindor. He picked up a few feathers that Fawkes had shed during the battle. Lockhart, who had been knocked unconscious twice, was slowly coming to his senses. Seeing that there was nothing left to do in the secret chamber, the phoenix, Fox, began to circle above Ethan's head once again. It chirped, signaling everyone to gather together so it could transport them away. As everyone placed their hands on one another, the phoenix landed on Ethan's shoulder. The familiar warmth of magic spread throughout their bodies as the phoenix initiated their departure. During this process, Ethan's dissatisfaction with Dumbledore grew. The Chamber of Secrets was indeed difficult to find, requiring a parcel mouth to open it, but the fact that the phoenix could enter suggested that Dumbledore had also discovered this place. Whether he knew about the Chamber of Secrets from the beginning or followed Harry to discover it, the presence of the phoenix meant he could have easily entered with its help. Even if he didn't bring Professor McGonagall, Professor Flitwick, or Snape with their level of skill, dealing with the basilisk wouldn't have been impossible. Yet, aside from sending the phoenix, Dumbledore's only support for Harry was the sorting hat. It seemed he expected Harry, a child with no sword training, to pull out the sword and engage the basilisk in hand-to-hand combat. What was he thinking? Was it to allow Harry to successfully draw the sword and prove he was a true Gryffindor? The sword of Gryffindor was not a magical solution, nor was the sorting hat. This approach seemed like a dangerous joke at Harry's expense. Ethan could only conclude that he couldn't understand Dumbledore's logic. Update 5 Force, additional update 3060. It's not easy to launch new books. Please consider placing a custom order. Your support through flowers, monthly votes, comments, and rewards is greatly appreciated. If you have any votes, please give them to me as the author. This is really important to me. Chapter 152, The Rescue and Revelations. Fox's swift action brought Ethan and several others directly to the door of Professor McGonagall's office. Upon opening the door, they were greeted by a room full of familiar faces. Professor McGonagall, Dumbledore, a concerned Mr. Weasley, and Mrs. Weasley, who was in tears by the fireplace. The sight of the group prompted Mrs. Weasley to let out a cry of relief. "Ron!" she exclaimed, leaping to her feet, followed closely by Mr. Arthur Weasley. The two of them enveloped their youngest son and his best friend in a tight embrace. Professor Dumbledore watched the reunion with a smile, standing by the fireplace, while Professor McGonagall, who was next to him, clutched her chest, trying to catch her breath. Fawkes, the phoenix, flew past Ethan's head and settled on Dumbledore's shoulder. Soon after, Ethan and the others also found themselves wrapped in Mrs. Weasley's grateful embrace. "You saved them! How did you manage it?" she exclaimed. "This is precisely what we're all eager to find out," Professor McGonagall added, her voice filled with relief. Once Mrs. Weasley released them, Harry stepped forward, placing the sorting hat and Gryffindor's sword on the desk. Ethan followed suit, laying the remnants of Riddle's diary on the table. Harry then began to recount their harrowing experience from his perspective. "Very good." Professor McGonagall encouraged Harry to continue when he paused. "So, you discovered that the monster was a basilisk and that Ron was being controlled. But how did you escape death?" Turning to Ethan, she asked, "And Mr. Green, how did you gain entry?" "According to Mr. Potter, you were the one who killed the monster. I must admit, you accomplished something that would challenge even us professors." "Thank you, Professor McGonagall. However, once we identified the monster as a basilisk, the process was simpler than one might imagine," Ethan replied modestly. "I didn't have to confront the basilisk directly. After realizing its identity, I brought some roosters into the secret chamber, which made dealing with it quite straightforward." Ethan chose not to mention his transformation into the Quetzalcoatl or his magical animagus abilities, preferring to keep those details private. Given that Riddle was no longer a threat, and Harry, Ron, and Lockhart were unconscious during the critical moments, there was no risk of them revealing his secret. Hermione and Siri, who were also privy to his abilities, would not disclose them without his permission. Furthermore, even if Fawkes understood the significance of the Quetzalcoatl, Dumbledore had no means of directly communicating with the Phoenix about it. Ethan then succinctly explained his side of the story, including how he discovered the disturbances in the Forbidden Forest, how he and Ron were assisted by the Centaurs, and his decision to follow Harry into the secret chamber. Ultimately, the basilisk was defeated by a rooster, and Tom Riddle was vanquished by Harry. The trio merely provided some assistance. Before Harry and Ron regained consciousness, the three had agreed on what details to share, especially omitting any mention of Ethan's animagus transformation and his use of a loophole to apparate within the castle. With the combined narratives of Harry and Ethan, everyone understood that Ron was not the perpetrator. The real villain was the destroyed diary on the table. The true mastermind, a younger version of Tom Riddle, was hiding in the Albanian forest. "It's remarkable that you managed to defeat him," Dumbledore remarked softly after hearing their story. "Without a doubt, he was one of the most talented students Hogwarts has ever seen." He then turned to Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, who looked bewildered by the unfolding events. "Few people are aware that Voldemort," Dumbledore continued, preparing to shed light on the Dark Wizard's origins and his connection to the events that had transpired. Once named Tom Riddle, he was a student I personally taught at Hogwarts 50 years ago. After leaving school, he vanished, journeying to every corner of the world, delving deeper into the abyss of dark magic. He associated with the most nefarious individuals in the wizarding world, underwent numerous perilous magical transformations, and was ultimately reborn as Lord Voldemort. When he re-emerged, recognizing him was nearly impossible. Hardly anyone could connect Voldemort with the intelligent, handsome head boy who once walked these halls. Upon hearing this, Mr. and Mrs. Weasley were taken aback and began to loudly reprimand Ron. Ethan could see that their outburst stemmed from fear, worried about further connections between their son and the enigmatic man coming to light. Dumbledore remained silent, soothing their fears, and requested they send Ron, Harry, and a somewhat disoriented Lockhart to the school's medical office first. Then, he turned his attention to Ethan and the other two. "Mr. Ethan Green, Miss Leanne, and Miss Granger, as the headmaster, I must express my gratitude for your contributions to Hogwarts," Professor Dumbledore said, adjusting his glasses. "I believe you will once again receive the school's Special Contribution Award for your actions," he added, looking at Ethan with a kind gaze, silently acknowledging him as the leader of the trio. "This young man is not only more handsome than Riddle was, but also boasts superior academic achievements, is more popular among both students and professors. Yet there are differences between them," Dumbledore mused, glancing at Sorella and Hermione. The two girls were discussing the Special Contribution Award with Ethan, their eyes filled with undisguised affection. "Ethan does possess the power of love in his heart, though it seems to be a bit overwhelming." Subsequently, the trio was escorted to the school infirmary by Professor McGonagall. Madame Pomfrey examined them, confirmed they were unharmed, and allowed them to return to their common room. Ethan had spent a considerable amount of time in the secret chamber. By the time he emerged, dawn was breaking. Overwhelmed by exhaustion, he hastily lay down on his dormitory's large bed, hoping to catch as much sleep as possible before breakfast. However, he was unable to sleep until it was nearly time to wake up. The next morning, the entire tower buzzed with cheers and the sound of running footsteps. His roommate Steve woke Ethan early, asking eagerly, "Ethan, is it true? Did you really defeat the monster in the secret chamber and kill a basilisk?" "Ethan, the school has decided to throw a celebration party. The petrified students have been cured, and the mystery of the secret chamber has been resolved," Kevin added excitedly. "Guys, can I please sleep a bit longer? Defeating the basilisk was exhausting." All right, I'll get up on my own." Ethan, groggy from lack of sleep, found himself being pulled out of bed by his enthusiastic roommates. Chapter 153, A Public Embrace. When the excitement was palpable, Ethan realized it would be unwise to insist on returning to sleep. Despite his drowsiness, he followed his friends to the auditorium. However, as soon as he stepped out of the Ravenclaw Tower, before he could even grasp the situation, he felt a firm grip on his hand. Suddenly, he was enveloped in a warm embrace. The scent of shampoo and the softness pressing against him made Ethan realize he was being hugged by a girl. Publicly hugged by a girl, Ethan felt a wave of embarrassment wash over him. His roommate flashed him a teasing smile. Upon closer inspection, Ethan recognized the girl as Zhang Chu. "Why did you do such a dangerous thing yesterday?" Zhang Chu's voice was filled with concern as she tightened her embrace. "You don't know how scared I was. I thought I might lose you." Their public display of affection caught the attention of several young wizards around them, who began to point and whisper. Realizing the spectacle they were causing, Ethan gently disentangled himself from her. "Thank you for caring, Junk. Don't worry, I'm fine," he reassured her, making a gesture of strength. He then casually cast a sound isolation force field, effectively ignoring the surrounding stares and murmurs. That's good," Jiangchu stammered, her cheeks flushed with shyness. The sound isolation force field provided her with a sense of privacy amidst the public gaze. "Can you promise not to do such dangerous things in the future? I was really scared," she confessed. Jiangchu had always preferred a simple, unambitious life. Although she was drawn to Ethan for his charm, popularity, and shared heritage, his penchant for finding trouble and leading an extraordinary life made her uneasy. Ethan could only offer a bitter smile in response. "I'll try my best," he said, though Jiangchu's frown deepened with his non-committal answer. "Why do you seek out these dangerous adventures? Can't we leave such matters to Dumbledore? That's his responsibility," she argued. "Because I believe I can make a difference," Ethan replied with conviction. "I believe I can defeat Quirrell, kill the Chimera, handle the Basilisk. I believe I can be the one to change everything. That's who I am." Ethan's earnest gaze met Jiangchu's. "I appreciate your feelings for me, but I'm sorry, I can't fulfill your request." Disappointment clouded Jiangchu's eyes, and Ethan sensed she might be on the verge of giving up. In her eyes, he saw a reflection of the original character from the story, a girl content with the mundane, unable to grasp the gravity of the war against Voldemort. Ethan needed someone who could stand by him through thick and thin, but Jiangchu seemed more suited for a peaceful, romantic campus life. However, Ethan underestimated the resolve of a young girl in love. After a moment of silence, Jiangchu lifted her gaze, her eyes shining with a newfound determination. "I understand," she said calmly. "Maybe I can't join you in battle like senior sisters Cyrilla and Granger, but I'll do my best to keep up with you. No matter what, I'll always be here waiting for you." With those words, she embraced Ethan once more, disregarding the curious onlookers, before walking away, leaving Ethan to ponder the depth of her resolve and the complexities of love amidst the backdrop of their magical world. Watching the girl's retreating figure, Ethan experienced an unexpected feeling for the first time in a relationship. He pondered whether Jiangchu's unusual behavior stemmed from her dissatisfaction with Shirley and Hermione, or from her reluctance towards him. Regardless, it seemed that Jiangchu's path had diverged from her previous life's trajectory. After addressing the matter with Jiangchu, Ethan proceeded to the auditorium as if nothing had happened. The incident at the lounge door began to circulate among a small group. However, thanks to Ethan's reputation and the day's prevailing discussions about secret chambers and monsters, he encountered minimal teasing along the way, with only a few roommates daring to jest. Upon entering the auditorium, Ethan was greeted with extra warmth. "Thank you for saving little Ron," exclaimed the twins, who hugged him one after the other at the door. Even Percy offered his thanks in a solemn manner. Additionally, numerous young wizards approached Ethan, expressing their gratitude. Many were Muggle-born wizards and friends of the petrification victims. Ethan noticed that Siri and Hermione of Gryffindor were receiving similar accolades. "You guys stayed in the secret chamber all night. You must be starving. I've prepared this for Cyrilla, and you're welcome to share," Penello, the female prefect, said as she placed several glasses of iced pumpkin juice and a plate of delicious food before Ethan. She then lightly chided, "Why do you always involve Cyrilla in such dangerous endeavors?" "What, you think she shouldn't be involved either?" Ethan asked, puzzled. But in reality, Siri enjoys these adventures. "Damn, it seems you know her better than I do," Penello responded, a hint of frustration in her voice. "Next time, either don't take her on your adventures, or count me in." At that moment, Hagrid, recently freed by the Ministry of Magic, entered the auditorium, igniting cheers among the young wizards. Subsequently, Dumbledore announced additional points at the banquet. Ethan, Siri, and Hermione each received 100 points from Dumbledore for solving the mystery of the Basilisk and the Slytherin heir, and for rescuing 2 classmates from the secret chamber. Although this was less than the 200 points awarded in the original story, it still seemed fair. Consequently, Ravenclaw, already ahead, further solidified its lead in the House Cup. Dumbledore seems to be looking out for me, Ethan mused, realizing that Dumbledore was perhaps cautious of repeating past mistakes, wary of pushing a wizard who could potentially follow in Voldemort's footsteps towards the darker aspects of magic. When Professor McGonagall announced the cancellation of that year's exams to alleviate the semester-long tension, the auditorium erupted in cheers, mixed with the groans of a few top students, particularly from Hermione. After the banquet, Ethan visited Harry and Ron in the ward and encountered Draco's father, Lucius Malfoy, descending the stairs in a fluster, clutching the damaged diary. Behind him, Harry and Dobby, the house elf who had been a source of trouble for him all semester, watched Lucius depart with a sense of pride. It appeared Harry had tricked Lucius with the diary, resulting in the Malfoy family losing a house elf. Observing this, Ethan had an idea and cast an advanced invisibility spell on himself to follow discreetly. Chapter 154. Lucius Malfoy seemed to have arrived at Hogwarts through apparition. Therefore, to leave, he had to traverse beyond the anti-apparition circle surrounding Hogwarts. This detail simplified Ethan's plan. As Lucius was about to apparate from an avenue outside Hogwarts, a white light flashed nearby, and then Lucius crashed heavily to the ground. It appeared that just after he initiated apparition, he collided with an invisible barrier and was repelled through space. What happened? Has the range of Hogwarts' anti-apparition circle expanded again? When did this occur? Lucius was bewildered. Unbeknownst to him, this was the result of the dimensional anchor spell cast by Ethan. When Lucius attempted to apparate from another location, he was suddenly struck by a disarm curse. His wand spun out of his grasp, and he was hurled against a tree. Ethan appeared before him, retrieving Lucius's wand and the diary. "Hello, Mr. Lucius Malfoy," Ethan greeted the disoriented man on the ground. "You are. I recognize you, Ethan Green. Why are you following me?" Lucius, rubbing his chest where the wand had struck him, managed to stand with some effort. "Assaulting an adult wizard, do you realize what you're doing?" Ethan waved his hand dismissively. "Don't worry, I mean no harm. I'm here because I have something to discuss with you, a topic you won't appreciate." As he spoke, he lifted the damaged diary, shaking it slightly. Lucius' expression darkened at the sight of the diary in Ethan's hand, realizing the true purpose of his visit. This was alarming. After all, he had given this diary to Ginny Weasley, and had inadvertently become the key to unlocking the Chamber of Secrets. With the chamber incident escalating to the point where even his own son was attacked and nearly lost his life, Lucius had managed to reclaim this problematic item, only for it to be taken once more, if Ethan knew its secrets. Lucius forced himself to appear calm, feigning indifference. "Tell me, Mr. Green, what do you intend to do? Considering you defeated the monster in the chamber and avenged Draco, I will do my best to accommodate your request." "That's not what I'm here to hear," Ethan replied, shaking his head. "Perhaps you should reconsider your response." His gaze on Lucius was earnest. Lucius's heart sank. It seemed Ethan knew more than he had anticipated. Yet he continued to feign ignorance. "Indeed, this diary holds great importance to the Malfoy family. How much do you require for its return?" Ethan shook his head again, his expression one of disappointment. Lucius, how have I earned such disrespect from you? I've approached you in person, offering you a chance, yet you respond with nothing but evasive answers." He waved the diary once more. "You're correct. I did slay the monster in the chamber, but you omitted a crucial detail. The heir to the chamber, the one who truly opened it, was defeated by me personally. Frankly, I've uncovered some astonishing facts in the process." Ethan's tone was calm yet firm, causing Lucius to feel as though he had been struck. His complexion, already pale, turned ghostly. This indicated Ethan truly knew everything about the diary, leaving Lucius no room to hide. "Okay, Mr. Green, I concede. I apologize for my earlier dismissiveness. Please, tell me what you want." Lucius finally capitulated, recognizing the gravity of his situation. Opposite him stood a man who had earned the highest honors for defeating the Chimera, and now he had no choice but to listen. Ethan killed the basilisk. Despite being a young wizard, his strength was extraordinary. He felt that Lucius Malfoy couldn't compare. With the diary and wand now in Ethan's possession, Lucius found himself unable to use apparition. He was at a disadvantage, akin to a swordsman without a sword. The Malfoy family's wisdom dictated that flexibility and adaptability were their greatest virtues. Ethan gestured dismissively. It seems Mr. Malfoy has fully grasped the situation, which is good. Let's proceed, but don't be too anxious. Turall, I am Draco's classmate. Upon hearing this, Lucius swallowed hard, sensing the underlying threat. His son was on the same campus as Ethan, effectively a hostage. Ethan was subtly warning him, stay in line, or your son might suffer. Suddenly, Ethan tossed the diary to Lucius, who caught it reflexively, eyeing Ethan with suspicion. Ethan, unfazed, inquired, Mr. Lucius, are you aware of the origins of this item? Lucius considered fabricating a story, but meeting Ethan's gaze, he encountered a terrifying authority, reminiscent of facing a giant dragon. The pressure was immense, surpassing even that of Voldemort. Thus, Lucius confessed, this diary was given to me by the Dark Lord. He merely mentioned it was a potent artifact of dark magic. Dark magic items? Ethan scoffed. Is that all? No, Lucius stammered, insisting on the Malfoy family's honor that he was telling the truth. Ethan nodded, satisfied. His psychic ability to detect thoughts confirmed Lucius's honesty. Psychic powers proved invaluable in discerning truth from deception, compelling honesty through sheer intimidation. It appeared Voldemort hadn't fully trusted the Malfoy family with the diary's true purpose. Ethan then revealed, are you aware that this diary nearly facilitated the Dark Lord's resurrection? The diary slipped from Lucius's grasp in shock. Ethan continued, I personally vanquished the entity within the diary. It contained the young Tom Marvolo Riddle's emotions, memories, and magic, imbued with potent and malevolent magic. Lucius was visibly shaken as Ethan explained how the diary had begun draining life from young wizards, including Ginny and Ron, and had unleashed terror in the school, endangering Draco, among others. Ethan manipulated his wand, rearranging the letters of Tom Riddle's name in the air to spell, I am Voldemort, giving Lucius a moment to absorb the revelation. In fact, Mr. Malfoy, I believe this diary is one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. Lucius was incredulous. As a member of a venerable pure-blood family, he was familiar with Horcruxes and understood the gravity of Ethan's claim. Voldemort is not entirely vanquished, as you must know. Last year, I encountered him on Professor Quirrell's head. Together with Harry, we confronted him, using Harry's protective magic to defeat them, Ethan recounted calmly, leaving Lucius horrified by the young wizard's resolve and power, rivaling even the Dark Lord's. Discussing the potential wrath of Voldemort, Ethan chuckled, sending a shiver down Lucius's spine as he contemplated the dire consequences. No one understands Voldemort's methods of punishment better than you. You've witnessed them too many times, the kind that makes people regret being born, Ethan reminded, adding, and he almost killed Draco. A person might act cowardly when their own life is at stake, but the threat to their family can inspire bravery. What do you want from me? Lucius asked, his voice hoarse. Ethan waved his hand dismissively. Don't misunderstand. I have no intention of revealing this matter. In fact, having you killed by the Dark Lord himself would not benefit me, at least not since you've targeted me. Lucius's tone shifted to one of respect. So what can I do for you? You indeed have something to offer me, Ethan said lightly, but the time is not right. The Dark Lord is bound to be resurrected. Dumbledore and I are aware of this, though the exact timing remains unknown. I estimate it will happen within the next 2 to 3 years. Until then, you need not do anything. On the contrary, continue living as Lucius Malfoy, awaiting his resurrection. When the time comes, you must answer his call immediately and become one of his trusted subordinates. Lucius panicked. But he never trusts anyone, not even me. So what? Ethan shook his head. He can't manage everything alone, right? He'll always need a few trusted subordinates for tedious tasks. Why can't one of them be you? In short, remember that your mistake cost him a Horcrux. You are destined to be his enemy. Lucius seemed to age as he spoke. Looking up at the young boy before him, he asked, Last question. You and Dumbledore. Oh, I'm merely a student at Dumbledore's school, that's all. Ethan waved off. His Order of the Phoenix, his grand cause, and his adventures have nothing to do with me. I have my own ideals and pursuits. I see, Lucius bowed respectfully again. Then, please allow the Malfoy family to contribute to your ideals. Aha, I appreciate your kindness, Ethan smiled. But it's not necessary for now. If the Malfoy family is indeed needed, I'll make sure someone contacts you. Don't be surprised then. After Ethan finished speaking, he blinked, tossed Lucius's wand back to him, and disappeared in a flash. Lucius, holding his wand, was astounded. Could Ethan actually apparate? He was surprised that Ethan had mastered apparition at such a young age. No, it was clear that apparition wasn't possible here just now. Could it be that? Lucius tried and found he had successfully returned home. The anti-apparition jinx he had assumed was in place was actually a ruse crafted solely by Ethan. At just 13 years old, Ethan possessed a maturity of mind and a level of magical prowess that Lucius found terrifying. This Ravenclaw genius is even more terrifying than the original Dark Lord, Lucius Malfoy concluded faintly. Chapter 155. After resolving the issue with the Chamber of Secrets, Ethan realized that the Malfoy family wasn't the only problem that needed his attention. He hadn't forgotten about Gilderoy Lockhart, the deceitful Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, whom Ethan had coerced into entering the Chamber of Secrets. During their journey, Ethan, through provocation and subtle manipulation, had Lockhart reveal his deepest secret, that the heroic deeds in his autobiography were actually the accomplishments of others. Ethan, skilled in a simple form of illusion magic, witnessed Lockhart's unraveling. He knew the spell Silent Illusion, a first-level illusion system spell that could create a visual illusion of an object, creature, or force field based on the caster's imagination, though it lacked sound, smell, tactile sensation, or temperature. The spell's upgraded versions, the second-level Weak Phantom and the third-level Strong Phantom, could add sound and then smell, touch, and temperature to the illusions, respectively. With this modest spell, Ethan could share what he had seen and heard with others without the need for a pensieve. One of the people Ethan decided to share this information with was the controversial journalist Rita Skeeter. Despite her reputation, Skeeter had given Ethan a fair report at the last award ceremony. While Ethan didn't consider this enough to earn his favor, believing fair reporting to be a basic journalistic duty, it did open a door for potential cooperation. Ethan sent Skeeter a small badge containing the memory of Lockhart's confession, along with a letter providing ample evidence, including memories of Lockhart's victims and his numerous failings as a teacher at Hogwarts. Skeeter, known for her keen news sense and decisiveness, saw an opportunity in Ethan's revelation. The day after Ethan sent the letter, he received a friendly reply from Skeeter, expressing her gratitude for the news material and promising to tarnish Lockhart's reputation. Ethan understood her true motive was to gain fame by dethroning a celebrity, but this aligned perfectly with his reasons for sharing the information. Skeeter's efficiency was astonishing. Ethan had sent the evidence on a Tuesday, and by Thursday evening, Skeeter informed him that a detailed report on Lockhart would be on the front page of the Daily Prophet the following day. This rapid turnaround was impressive, even by the standards of prolific writers. The Daily Prophet's decision to publish such a story was straightforward. As Skeeter explained in her letter, the newspaper's goal was to sell copies, and nothing sold better than sensational news, regardless of its potential to ruin someone. Lockhart, having been a star promoted by Wizard Weekly and a 5-time winner of the Most Charming Smile Award in the same publication, was not protected by the Daily Prophet. In fact, the newspaper was eager to lead the charge in his downfall. Friday marked the third day since Lockhart had left the school infirmary, unaware of the storm that was about to break over him, all thanks to Ethan's strategic maneuvering. During the past 3 days, Lockhart's life had been a torment. Every day he was consumed by worry, fearing that Ethan would reveal his secret of self-destruction. Yet, he clung to a sliver of hope. Perhaps Ethan would show compassion and keep his secret for a little while longer. And even if Ethan did tell, who would believe such a tale? After all, their conversation about his self-destruction had been private, shared only among the 4 of them. Without Lockhart's admission, there was no evidence. It had been 5 days since the incident, and Hogwarts was still free of any rumors about his deceit. Could it be that he had managed to escape this predicament unscathed? With these thoughts, Lockhart entered the auditorium for breakfast as usual. Breakfast time was also when the owls delivered letters, packages, and newspapers to the students. Today, however, the auditorium was swarmed by an unusually large number of owls. They flew in like dark clouds, causing a commotion with their feathers and droppings as they delivered hundreds of copies of that day's Daily Prophet to everyone present. The moment the front page of the Daily Prophet was revealed, the auditorium fell into a stunned silence, broken only by the flapping of the owl's wings. But this silence was short-lived, quickly giving way to a buzz of activity. Both students and staff glanced from the newspaper in their hands to Lockhart, who was seated at the teacher's table, with expressions ranging from disbelief to amusement. The headline on the newspaper featured a photo of Lockhart cowering in the Chamber of Secrets, with a bold caption, "Warrior or Liar, Gilderoy Lockhart's True Identity." Special correspondent Rita Skeeter reports, the article began, Albus Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, is known for his bold hiring decisions. Last summer, he appointed Gilderoy Lockhart, a celebrated figure in the wizarding world and a third-level knight of the Order of Merlin, as the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor. Upon his appointment, Lockhart replaced the course textbooks with his own, a move that drew complaints from numerous families due to the high cost of the 7-book set. The author has obtained reliable evidence that the adventures chronicled in Lockhart's books are not his own. Throughout his travels, he claimed the achievements of others as his own and erased their memories with the Obliviate charm. In truth, Lockhart's knowledge of magic beyond the Obliviate charm is non-existent. His performance in the Defense Against the Dark Arts classes has been abysmal, revealing him to be a complete fraud. Lockhart, who had also received a copy of the Daily Prophet, read the front-page article with a growing sense of dread. Shaking with rage, he exclaimed, "Slander! This is pure slander!" Tearing up the newspaper, he declared his intention to send a howler to Rita Skeeter. The detailed report, complete with photographs, was far more damaging than any rumor he had feared. Lockhart had not anticipated this turn of events, believing the students had kept his secret not out of pity, but because they were biding their time. Now, faced with the undeniable evidence in print, he was at a loss for how to respond. In a fit of desperation, he began snatching newspapers from the professors nearby, attempting to tear them to shreds. "Well, Lockhart, since you're so keen on the newspaper, here you go," Snape said, handing his copy to Lockhart with a smirk, clearly enjoying the moment. He seems to have a penchant for collecting newspaper clippings. The students were immediately reminded of the bulletin board in Lockhart's office, which was filled with articles about his supposed exploits. The auditorium erupted in laughter, but the atmosphere shifted dramatically when the doors swung open. 2 wizards, clad in the official robes of the Ministry of Magic, entered, led by Dumbledore himself. The laughter quickly subsided as all eyes turned to these unexpected visitors. Gilderoy Lockhart, the leader, a slender yet authoritative wizard, approached Lockhart with a stern expression. Lockhart's complexion turned ashen, as if he felt exposed under a glaring spotlight. "We are from the Magical Law Enforcement Reconnaissance Team, a division of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement at the Ministry of Magic. Based on credible information, you are accused of violating the Wizarding Offenses Act, the Wizarding Torts Act, the Wizard Theft Act, among other laws. We request your cooperation with our investigation," he announced, his voice resonating throughout the auditorium. The young witches who had fervently defended Lockhart were in disbelief. Could Professor Lockhart truly be a fraud, his tales of adventure nothing more than stolen valor? Was his only real talent the forgetfulness curse? Despite their reluctance to accept it, the evidence was undeniable. Confronted by the ministry officials, Lockhart had no choice but to rise from his seat. His lips quivered as he attempted to speak, but no words came out. With a final, trembling glance at Ethan, he followed the ministry employees out of the castle, his head hung low. "It appears we'll be in need of a new Defense Against the Dark Arts professor next year," Professor Dumbledore remarked, adjusting his glasses before exiting the auditorium. "What a revelation!" Ethan heard Ron exclaim loudly to Harry from the Gryffindor section. Rita Skeeter actually did something worthwhile this time. I suspect the informant might be one of our own Hogwarts students, Prefect Pinello mused, as if channeling Conan Doyle. Who else would think to order so many copies of the Daily Prophet in advance? Right, Siri? Cirilla offered no response, instead locking eyes with Ethan across the long table. They shared a knowing smile, their silent exchange speaking volumes. Chapter 156. Nowadays, Hogwarts is devoid of monsters that can petrify or kill, and the pressure of exams is a distant memory. The homework assigned by professors is manageable, leaving the young wizards eagerly anticipating the summer vacation. However, not everyone in the castle is content. Draco Malfoy finds himself in a state of disbelief as he navigates the changes following his recovery from petrification. The Malfoy family has lost their house elf, and more significantly, Lucius Malfoy has been removed from the school board. Draco's once arrogant demeanor has been replaced with a gloomy countenance, fueled by resentment towards the drastic shift in his family's fortunes and the humiliation of being attacked by the supposed heir of Slytherin. This incident has sparked a flurry of rumors among his pure-blooded peers, adding to his disgrace. On a brighter note, Ron Weasley has overcome his guilt, and his bond with Harry Potter has grown stronger. He has learned from Hermione Granger that Harry cast a protective spell, Love Guard, on him. Although the spell continues to protect them, it has introduced an awkwardness into their friendship, stemming from the unconventional nature of the protection. Ginny Weasley, Ron's sister, has also returned to her normal self. After confronting the truth about her manipulation by Voldemort, she has found a new hero in Ethan. It was Ethan who intervened in the chicken coop, thwarting the mysterious man and preventing further trouble for Ginny. Alongside Siri and Hermione, Ethan played a crucial role in the secret chamber, defeating the basilisk and the man in the diary, thereby saving Harry and Ron. This act has elevated Ethan's status in Ginny's heart, placing him on par with Harry, though she might still favor Harry due to fewer rivals. While some students relish the thought of an easier next school year, others are concerned. The departure of Gilderoy Lockhart has been a relief, but it has left a void in the Defense Against the Dark Arts teaching position. With Lockhart's dismissal in late February and 4 months remaining in the semester, the students face the prospect of self-study for the rest of the term. This situation is particularly frustrating for those who value their education as they feel they have lost a semester's worth of learning. Amidst these concerns, Ethan is approached by his roommate, Steve, after a Defense Against the Dark Arts class. Steve, usually cheerful, appears serious as he makes a request of Ethan. He expresses his frustration with the lack of substantive learning in the Defense Against the Dark Arts classes over the past 2 semesters. Citing the recent basilisk attack as an example of their unpreparedness, Steve believes it is essential for them to acquire practical knowledge in defense against dark forces. In the Defense Against the Dark Arts course, the instructor emphasized, "This is how to protect yourself. Of course, I don't expect everyone to be able to defeat a basilisk like you did, but at the very least, we should be able to handle minor threats, such as elves, foxes, and devils." The first class was a disaster, and everyone's performance was frankly embarrassing. Steve looked at Ethan with eager eyes, filled with hope. "So, I believe it's essential for us to have someone to guide us in this area. And you, Ethan, having defeated the Chimera during the holidays and the Basilisk this semester, are more skilled than many professors. In fact, you're the best teacher. Could you use the Defense Against the Dark Arts self-study periods to teach us?" After hearing Steve's request, Ethan pondered for a moment without responding directly. Instead, he asked with a penetrating gaze, "You're not the only one who thinks this, are you?" He glanced towards the door of the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. At that moment, class had ended, and most of the young wizards had left. However, upon Ethan's words, 7 more students stepped forward. Kevin, Anthony, Michael, Morag, Terry, and the Patil sisters. Do you all feel the same way? Ethan surveyed the 6 individuals before him. "Steve is right. That's exactly what we're saying." Anthony Goldstein was the first to speak up. "Absolutely," Michael Corner chimed in. "Ethan, you're the leader our Ravenclaws need." Terry Boot exclaimed with enthusiasm. "Ethan, please teach us," pleaded the Petal sisters, Padma and Parvati. The others voiced their agreement as well. Observing the eager faces around him, Ethan nodded thoughtfully, then said, "Your points and Steve's are valid. Learning more about self-protection is always beneficial. However, conducting lectures during self-study periods isn't straightforward. If we're talking about after-class activities, at worst, we can find an empty classroom, set up a study club, and teach privately. But if it involves class time, we must consider the opinions of others." Ethan proposed a plan. "How about this? Before the weekend, gather the opinions of all the second-year Ravenclaws and Gryffindors. This includes those in favor, those indifferent but permitting the lectures, and those against it. Compile the results. If the majority supports this idea, then I'll dedicate some time to share my experiences with you." Although Ethan didn't agree outright, the group was visibly pleased. The students present were considered influential within their grade, their opinions nearly reflective of the entire Ravenclaw house. The real challenge would be gaining Gryffindor's support, given that both houses shared the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom this semester. As the students dispersed, Ethan was left in contemplation. Recognized as a prodigy in Ravenclaw, his exceptional abilities set him apart, earning the admiration and respect of his peers. Yet admiration often led to distance. Tom Riddle had once mentioned that at their age, he had already begun to gather followers, forming his own circle. For Ethan, close friends like Hermione, Shirley, possibly Zhangqiu and Penelo could form his inner circle. Additionally, having a group of supporters, though not as close, who respected him would be advantageous. As the narrative concluded, a reminder was issued for readers to support the novel through purchases, votes, reviews, and rewards, emphasizing the importance of such support for the author. Chapter 157. Ethan's Defense Against the Dark Arts Class. Ethan Green was set to personally teach a Defense Against the Dark Arts class, and the news quickly spread among the young wizards in Ravenclaw and Gryffindor. Consequently, many of them came to inquire about the class, including Zhangqiu and Hermione. "Only second graders can attend the class, not the third graders?" Zhangqiu looked disappointed after hearing this. "You are too biased. Although you are a second grader, everyone in the third grade still recognizes your level." "I would like to give a lecture to the third grade, but I don't have time," Ethan explained with a wry smile. "You didn't take the Defense Against the Dark Arts class with us." Hermione, excitedly, expressed her desire to be Ethan's assistant. "Of course, this position must be given to me, who has been trained by you for a long time." The girl looked eager to try. "I also want to experience what it's like to be a teacher." "Okay, of course, the position of assistant belongs to you," Ethan said, affectionately patting her head. Unfortunately, the pair of cat ears were removed at her strong request. But even without her cat lady appearance, Miss Granger still embraced her role as a little girl this time. After receiving Ethan's affirmative answer, Hermione happily returned to Gryffindor to persuade her classmates. Another special visitor was Penelope Clearwater. The female prefect said to him arrogantly, "For Cyrilla's sake, I will help you appeal to the young wizards as a prefect." "That's really kind of you," Ethan replied. Although he was confident that his prestige alone was enough, he still expressed his gratitude. Finally, when the weekend arrived, Hermione, now the teaching assistant, compiled the statistics of the second-year wizards from both houses. In the courtyard near the Transfiguration classroom, she announced loudly, 95% of the second-year Ravenclaw students want to participate in Ethan's class, and 3% are indifferent, with only one person preferring to study alone. Among the Gryffindor second-year students, 80% want to participate in the course, 13% are indifferent, and only 3 prefer to study alone. After sharing the statistics, she looked at Ethan. "Judging from this data, everyone is very interested in learning about my experiences in Defense Against Dark Magic," Ethan said, moved. "In this case, I am more than happy to share. In the next Defense Against the Dark Arts class, I will introduce you to some of my personal experiences. I hope you will all support me." Ethan's words triggered enthusiastic cheers from the young wizards. Those who had come specifically for this meeting were the most eager about Ethan's courses in both houses. For a moment, the entire courtyard was filled with their cheers. Ethan gestured for silence, and the cheers gradually ceased. Since it is a class, there will naturally be a preparation part. In the next class, I plan to teach you about the disarming curse. You don't need to bring any books, just your wand and a notebook. Let's spread the word. Thus, the Defense Against the Dark Arts class, voluntarily organized by the young wizards and taught by Ethan, was officially underway. In the first Defense Against the Dark Arts class the following week, Ethan walked into the classroom to find students from both houses. Some were sitting upright, while others even took the initiative to greet him. Their enthusiasm was much higher than in the self-study classes, showing a genuine interest in learning about defense against dark arts. Not only for self-protection, but also because it was cool, akin to how every Muggle boy loves toy guns as a child. As for the little witches, beyond learning self-protection methods, their biggest reason for taking the course was to support Ethan. Perhaps because there were too many people supporting him, the scene was a bit too grand. Ethan even noticed that Professor Flitwick from the college was sitting at the back of the classroom, smiling and listening attentively. So, under the spotlight, Ethan delivered their first Defense Against the Dark Arts lesson. To give everyone a striking start, Ethan nodded and waved his wand, and, as if by magic, 8 humanoid puppets the size of adult wizards appeared in the classroom, descending as though from the sky. This caused a burst of exclamations. These 8 puppets were wooden golems Ethan had crafted himself, using methods provided by 4 ancient magic guardians. This allowed for their convenient summoning. These wooden golems, a blend of ancient and arcane magic techniques, were not only easy to summon, but also possessed basic immunity to magic. Except for fire magic and plant control spells, they were immune to most low-level magics, making them perfect practice targets. Since this is a Defense Against the Dark Arts class, it naturally focuses more on practical combat, Ethan began, surveying the eager young wizards before him. But before we dive into practice, we need to understand the basics of the disarming curse. Can anyone tell me about the disarming spell? He scanned the audience, finding some of the thrill of public speaking he had experienced in the past. As a teaching assistant, Hermione was the first to raise her hand, and Ethan naturally allowed her to answer first. Disarming Curse, the spell is Expelliarmus, which can force an opponent's wand to fly out of their hand. Its effectiveness varies with the caster's magical ability. This spell is commonly used in wizard duels to disarm the opponent. Due to its quick casting speed and short travel time, it can be used to gain the upper hand or even to defeat an opponent. Very well said. Thank you, Hermione. Ethan closed his mouth in time and smiled slightly. It's a pity that I don't have the authority to award you extra points. The young wizards burst into laughter. Next, Ethan demonstrated the disarming spell on a wooden golem. After breaking down the spell's key components, he had the young wizards form groups of 8 or 9. Each group selected a wooden golem as their target and took turns practicing the disarming curse. Ethan and Hermione moved among the students, checking for errors and offering corrections. After everyone had mastered the disarming spell, Ethan made the wooden golems move, arranging for the students to practice on moving targets. By the end of the class, nearly everyone could proficiently use the spell. With the wooden golems serving as flexible targets, the training became engaging and enjoyable, leaving the young wizards eagerly anticipating their next session. This Defense Against the Dark Arts course is really awesome, one student remarked. If Ethan were the teacher, I'd never miss a class, another added. Hope the next class comes soon, echoed through the room, with the wizards looking forward to their next lesson. Even Professor Flitwick praised Ethan, suggesting he could directly become a Defense Against the Dark Arts professor after graduation. I think it's better to forget it, Professor Flitwick. Ethan could only respond with a bitter smile. I think I still want to live for a few more years. Chapter 158. After Ethan's first remarkable lecture, his temporary role as the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor became the talk of Hogwarts. The news that Ethan had directly taught spell combat, even incorporating moving targets for practice, sparked envy among the young wizards. They had endured ineffective Defense Against the Dark Arts professors for the past 2 years, and now longed for the hands-on experience Ethan offered. It was akin to how Muggle college students might envy military training that involves handling real firearms and live ammunition. Especially eager were the second-year wizards from Hufflepuff and Slytherin. They were keen to join Ravenclaw's classes and participate in the courses, longing to learn the disarming curse and engage in target shooting. Thus, during Ethan's second Defense Against the Dark Arts class, a few students came to observe. Among them, Ethan spotted Zhang Chu with his keen eyes. The observing students discovered that Ethan had introduced a new element in his second class. Instead of another practical lesson, he chose to discuss how to deal with dangerous magical creatures, focusing on those that might be encountered in the Forbidden Forest, such as bowtruckles and acromantulas. Ethan began by presenting a bonsai tree that housed a living bowtruckle. The opportunity to interact with real magical creatures immediately captivated the students. With Ethan's guidance, they learned to use the confusion spell to befuddle the bowtruckle before feeding and interacting with them, effectively making friends with these creatures. Next came the acromantula segment. Given the creature's size and danger, bringing one into the classroom was out of the question. However, Ethan had a solution. He conjured a powerful phantom in the classroom, creating an illusion of an acromantula that was indistinguishable from the real thing in appearance, sound, and even touch. This initially terrified the students, some of whom instinctively used the disarming curse they had just learned on the phantom. However, they soon realized it was an invaluable teaching tool, allowing them to observe the creature from all angles and experience its deadly hunting techniques firsthand. Ethan further enhanced the experience by simulating spider silk with the spider web technique, giving the students a taste of what it would be like to be preyed upon by an acromantula in the wild. This innovative approach to Defense Against the Dark Arts quickly made Ethan's student-organized class immensely popular. In the last 3 months of the semester, Ethan's course was praised by everyone at Hogwarts. Students from all houses and grades sought opportunities to attend his classes whenever possible. Despite Hogwarts' tradition against skipping classes, Ethan's sessions were always packed, often with 1.5 times the expected number of students, forcing him to prepare additional teaching materials each time. Ethan's mastery of magic and his talent became well known throughout Hogwarts. The students were aware that there was a second year among them whose skill level was on par with the professors. Unlike the professors, Ethan could create engaging golems as teaching aids and use illusion spells to bring the subjects described in books to life. As the last Defense Against the Dark Arts class of the semester concluded, so did the term. The holidays were approaching, and at the end-of-term banquet, in addition to celebrating another victory for Ravenclaw House in the House Cup, Principal Dumbledore spoke at length, engaging in self-criticism. He admitted that as the headmaster, he had failed to protect the students, allowing them to be endangered by the monster in the Chamber of Secrets. This, he confessed, made him feel deeply incompetent. In a gesture of apology, he announced his intention to gradually retire from his various prestigious titles over the next few years, effectively stepping down from all official positions. His words, which sounded like a declaration of retirement, left both the students and professors somewhat alarmed. Ethan understood that Dumbledore's actions served a dual purpose. On one hand, they were an apology for the events that had transpired at the school that semester. An apology Ethan believed was warranted due to Dumbledore's own admission of negligence. On the other hand, Ethan was aware that Dumbledore had, through Tom Riddle's diary, confirmed the existence of Horcruxes and recognized that Voldemort's return was imminent. Dumbledore was laying the groundwork for the inevitable confrontation with Voldemort. From this perspective alone, Dumbledore's preparedness to sacrifice himself was truly admirable. After the banquet, it was time to board the Hogwarts Express and return home. Ethan, Hermione, and Cyrilla found themselves sharing a compartment, while Zhang Chu and Marietta, having found no other vacancies, chose to sit next door. Penelo, the female prefect, opted to join them instead of taking her place in the prefect's compartment, preferring their company. Throughout the journey, Ethan noticed Percy Weasley, the Gryffindor male prefect, passing by their compartment multiple times, each time casting a longing glance inside. It was clear he had a purpose. Turning to Penelo, who was sitting next to Cyrilla, Ethan remarked, It seems Gryffindor's Percy Weasley has taken an interest in you. Penelo responded with frustration. Yes, and that's precisely why I'm not in the prefect's compartment. All he talks about is the Ministry of Magic and his future career plans. It's utterly tedious. She then smiled at Ethan and Hermione, adding, but it's more interesting here, especially with the dynamics between you two and the girls. Ouch, why did you kick me? She shot Cyrilla a fierce glare, but the Witcher simply stared out the window, feigning ignorance. As the Hogwarts Express came to a stop, Penelo whispered to Hermione, your parents will definitely be proud of you after everything you've done this year. She then sighed. Unlike my parents, who always wanted me to return to the United States, but in the end, I chose to stay in the UK to pursue wizardry. She gave Cyrilla a meaningful look. Remember to write to me during the holidays. Throughout this exchange, Penelo deliberately avoided looking at Ethan, then quickly disembarked from the train, disappearing into the crowd. After saying goodbye to Zhang Chu, Ethan and his friends also left the train. Hermione was greeted by her parents, who had plans to travel to France that summer, leaving few opportunities for them to meet during the holidays. Ethan couldn't help but feel that Hermione's parents were intentionally keeping her away, reluctant to share their little cotton-padded jacket. He mused, your little cotton-padded jacket is so wonderful. What's the harm in sharing? With that, Ethan, along with Hilly, returned to their home in the village of Ottery St. Catchpole. Chapter 159. Summer Vacation Begins. Summer vacation had begun, and the summer sun was showing its full strength, heating the earth beneath it. Ethan and Cyrilla were seated at a small table under the shade of an oak tree, enjoying sodas while discussing how to spend their summer vacation. How about we go hunting for dragons? Cyrilla blinked at Ethan and suggested. You've been collecting dragon hearts recently, and it seems you still haven't found all the types you want. Why don't we hunt the missing dragons ourselves? This is a good suggestion, Ethan nodded. But why did you suddenly make such a suggestion? It doesn't seem like you at all. It's because you always take on the most dangerous opponents in every battle. Cyrilla couldn't help complaining. Whether it's a chimera or a basilisk, you're always the one to face them. I want to experience what it's like to fight against these dangerous magical creatures too. I think you just want to try out your sword, Ethan said sharply. Wasn't defeating Riddle enough for you? Cyrilla shook her head. Fighting wizards and battling magical creatures feel different. Seeing the expectant look in her eyes, Ethan couldn't help but shake his head. Ever since the arcane sword was upgraded to 2.0, you seem to be getting more and more addicted to combat. Isn't it because you designed the sword to be so user-friendly? Cyrilla rolled her eyes at him playfully. Indeed, Ethan's arcane sword 2.0, combined with his magic warrior skills, was a perfect match for Cyrilla, who excelled in close combat and possessed significant magical power, but preferred not to engage in finely controlled violence. Their compatibility was nearly perfect. What's that? Suddenly, Cyrilla noticed a black shadow crossing the sky and couldn't help but ask. Ethan looked up to see an injured owl flying over with a letter in its beak. It collided with the tall trunk of an oak tree and fell down like a rag. This owl is far worse than Hemmer, Cyrilla commented. Hearing this, Hemmer, who was nearby, puffed out his chest in pride. It's because it's too old, Ethan observed. He bent down to pick up the owl, providing it with some water and food. Upon opening the envelope, he discovered it was a letter from their neighbor, Arthur Weasley. The letter expressed gratitude for saving Ron and Ginny and extended an invitation to Ethan and Cyrilla for dinner as a gesture of thanks. However, the letter was dated 2 days ago. Whose letter is it? Cyrilla asked casually while playing with the two owls on the table. The Weasley family. They want to thank us for our help with the Chamber of Secrets by inviting us to dinner, Ethan explained as he handed her the letter. Without delay, they set off and arrived at the Weasley family's yard within minutes. The Weasley twins, along with Ginny, were tending the garden and waved at them upon their arrival. Ethan noticed Ginny's face blush when she looked at him, but she was more open than the previous year. The owl must have lost its way, which is why we received the invitation late, Ethan explained as he handed the Weasley family's old owl to Ginny. My advice is to retire it soon, so it can live out its days here without the stress of delivering letters. Of course, Mr. Ethan. I'll take good care of Errol, Ginny replied playfully. Together they walked towards the burrow, a house that had once been a large pigsty constructed from stones, with additional rooms added over time. Ethan stood in awe of the Weasley family home, a structure that defied the laws of physics with its towering, crooked form. It was a testament to the power of magic, capable of maintaining its precarious balance without heed to conventional forces. Each visit to the Weasleys filled Ethan with a sense of wonder and disbelief. "Ah, Ethan, and Cyrilla, welcome to my home. I was expecting you yesterday," Mrs. Weasley greeted them warmly as she tended to the chickens. She quickly enveloped them in a hug before turning to her children. "Your father will be back soon. In the meantime, please make our guests feel welcome." Ginny led Cyrilla to her room, while George and Fred ushered Ethan into theirs. The room, cluttered and cozy, housed 2 identical beds and was clearly meant for the twins. "Come on, Ethan, let us show you the secret project we've been working on," they said, closing the door with a sense of ceremony. Fred retrieved a box from under the bed, releasing a pungent medicinal odor that filled the room. Ethan, using his identification technique, discerned a collection of semi-finished magic potions and faulty alchemy products, including swelling potions, deformation potions, and scabies potions. "The smell is overpowering. I had no idea what you were concocting in here," Ethan said, opening a window and casting a cyclone curse to clear the air. He then turned to the twins, puzzled. "You plan to add these potions to desserts, but who would willingly eat something with such a flavor?" "Ah, well, our potion-making skills are still basic, which limits us," George admitted with a shrug. "That's why we invited you here." Fred then presented a few fireworks-like gadgets, labeled Dr. Filibuster's magical fireworks, which ignited upon contact with water. "These are among our more successful experiments, inspired by products from the Jumping Magic Joke Shop," Fred explained. Ethan recognized the ambition behind the twins' endeavors, reminiscent of their future joke shop venture from the original story. Despite their creativity, their current alchemical skills were insufficient for independent product development or realizing their innovative ideas. "We've been thinking about opening a joke shop and could really use your help," George said earnestly. "Does your offer of technical support still stand? We're willing to offer you a share of the business as compensation." Fred chimed in, "Just a bit of your expertise could make our dream a reality." After a moment's hesitation, Ethan nodded. "I've seen your dedication and potential. I'm happy to assist, but I'll need some time to research and come up with a plan. I'll have something for you by dinner." The twins erupted in cheers, their spirits lifted by Ethan's agreement. The evening brought more good news when Arthur Weasley returned from the Ministry of Magic, announcing he had won the Daily Prophet's grand prize of 700 gold galleons. The dinner that followed was a festive affair, with a spread that surpassed the typical fare of a British household. Molly Weasley ensured Ethan and Cyrilla were well fed, while Arthur engaged them with enthusiastic conversation, making the evening truly memorable for everyone. Ethan engaged in a conversation about Muggle electronics, capturing the attention of many at the dinner table. Ginny was particularly attentive, and even Percy, albeit stiffly, sought topics to engage with him. I had to acknowledge that, despite its modesty, the home radiated warmth. Among the most enthusiastic were the Weasley twins. In just one afternoon, Ethan provided them with a suggestion for product improvement and a series of technical insights, bringing them a step closer to their dream. After the dinner, Mr. Weasley announced the family's plan to use a portion of the 700 galleons for a trip to Egypt and extended an invitation to Ethan and Ciri to join them. Ethan, however, declined. He couldn't justify spending the Weasley family's money, considering their financial situation and his own wealth from the Philosopher's Stone. After leaving the Weasley's house, Ciri let out a soft sigh. This holiday, Hermione and others are traveling, and now the Weasley family too. "It seems holiday travel is quite the trend these days," she observed, then turned to Ethan. "If you're not keen on dragon slaying, where else might we consider traveling?" She hadn't let go of the dragon slaying plan. At that moment, another owl arrived, delivering a letter to Ethan. He opened it, read through, and then handed it to Siri. "Looks like your luck is turning. Good opportunities are coming our way. We can travel and perhaps even slay a dragon, all without spending a dime. The best part is that it's all free." Chapter 160. This letter originated from Jaina Proudmoore, the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. It was a formal invitation for Ethan Green and Cyrilla Leanne to undertake a commissioned task from the Ministry of Magic. Their mission involved traveling overseas to address the issue of a black dragon that had escaped from the Great Yin. The invitation read, "Considering the extraordinary nature of the black dragon involved in this mission, the Ministry of Magic, upon the recommendation of Director Jaina Proudmoore, cordially invites Mr. Ethan Green, a recipient of the Order of Merlin, First Class, and Miss Cyrilla Leanne, a recipient of the Order of the Knights Medal Level 2, to serve as professional consultants. We earnestly hope Mr. Green and Miss Lean will accept this invitation and contribute to the protection of the wizarding community. The Ministry of Magic will provide various rewards." The mission was scheduled to commence in 3 days. "What do you think? Should we get involved?" Cyrilla asked, somewhat surprised. "Haven't you always been critical of the Ministry of Magic in the Kingdom of Yin?" "You're right, I have been," Ethan agreed. "Under normal circumstances, I would decline such an invitation. However, this one is different since it's Jaina who has extended it to us." "Miss Proudmoore, the Ministry of Magic official you correspond with every few days?" Cyrilla remembered the name well. "Exactly," Ethan confirmed with a sneer. "The Ministry is so concerned with appearances that they wouldn't normally request the assistance of 2 minors for such a task." "Miss Proudmoore's approach is quite unconventional. It's no wonder you agreed," Cyrilla remarked, her opinion of Jaina improving. "It's not just for that reason," Ethan added mysteriously. "Jaina is, in essence, the same kind of person as us." "A person from another world, you mean?" Cyrilla took a moment to understand. "Is she also a visitor from another world?" "That's correct. Jaina hails from a world known as Azeroth. Its level of civilization and magical development is somewhat similar to your homeland, though Azeroth boasts a more advanced magical civilization," Ethan explained. "In light of her attitude, Jaina is naturally our ally. Therefore, since she has extended this invitation, I will accept it without hesitation." "Understood," Cyrilla nodded. "Then, I've decided to travel to South America this holiday." 3 days later, in the tower. "Cyrilla, are you ready?" Ethan called out, standing in front of the fireplace. Shortly after, Cyrilla emerged from her room. Unlike the Hogwarts student attire she wore upon her return, she now donned a smart Witcher outfit, similar to Ethan's suggestion. Ethan was dressed in a white undershirt, a leather vest, leather wristbands, and a belt secured with straps, all topped with a cloak made from acromantula silk and unicorn hair. Cyrilla chose a white undershirt paired with long leather gloves and a high-waisted leather corset, accentuating her waist. Her outfit was completed with black leather pants and sturdy boots, showcasing her strong, beautiful legs. The ensemble was devoid of excessive jewelry, highlighting Cyrilla's heroic Witcher persona. Notably, all the leather used was crafted from basilisk skin by Ethan himself. As Cyrilla descended the stone stairs, Ethan couldn't help but admire his handiwork. "My design turned out quite well, don't you think? It's reminiscent of Mr. Geralt's attire, isn't it?" he mused, watching the female Witcher approach. Standing before her, she then remembered the reflection she had seen in the mirror and nodded. "Indeed, your craftsmanship is exceptional. You've perfectly captured the essence of the Witcher." That was to be expected, after all. This outfit Ethan had created was inspired by the gear from The Witcher 3, particularly Cyrilla's attire, which closely resembled the adult version of Cyrilla from the game. This ensemble was prepared for a cosplay event at the comic exhibition. At that moment, Cyrilla inquired, "When I put on the Vir's corset, I noticed it fit my waist and hips perfectly, as if it was made just for me. How did you manage that? Did you take my measurements secretly?" She blushed at the thought. Ethan, hearing this, responded with a hint of pride. "Are you underestimating me? There's no need for such measures. I had all your measurements figured out the first time I laid eyes on you. My spatial judgment is quite accurate." Cyrilla, misunderstanding the nature of his ability, exclaimed, "What kind of inappropriate skill is this? Do you really take pride in that? After they finished dressing and strapped their arcane swords to their backs, they grabbed a handful of flue powder and stepped into the fireplace. With a loud bang and a burst of green flames, they vanished, reappearing in a peculiar room. This room, though not large, was filled with classical-style furniture and decorations. While not overly expensive, each piece was exquisite, creating a medieval ambiance. However, Ethan was surprised to find Muggle appliances like TVs uncommon in typical wizarding households. But considering the room's owner, Ethan's surprise faded. Wizards in the Harry Potter world might be traditionalists, but Jaina from Azeroth was different, accustomed to dwarf technology and goblin engineering. Ethan found it unsurprising that Jaina embraced Muggle technology. "Oh, Brother Ethan and Miss Cyrilla, welcome!" Ethan turned at the sound and saw Jaina in a blue dress greeting them with a smile. Although it was their second meeting, Cyrilla greeted her with formal respect. "I'm delighted to see you, Lady Proudmoore." Ethan, more relaxed, introduced them. "Sorry to keep you waiting, Sister Jaina. Though we've met before, this is our formal introduction. This is Cyrilla, the Princess of Cintra from the world known as the Witcher, the heir of ancient blood," Ethan explained. "And this is Jaina Proudmoore, the Princess of Kultiras from the world of Azeroth, and a disciple of the Chancellor of Dalaran." As he spoke, Ethan gestured broadly and sighed. "The three of us, visitors from other worlds, have found ourselves here. If we wish to return to our homelands, we must work together. In this sense, we are comrades with a shared goal. Please, let's all get along." Hearing his words, Jaina and Cyrilla exchanged softer glances, whispering to each other about their experiences since arriving in this new world. They found common ground quickly. Soon, their conversation turned back to Ethan. Jaina, with a hint of curiosity, asked, "I'm surprised to hear you've been living together for over a year. What exactly is the nature of your relationship? Comrades? Close friends? Or something more?" Ethan replied casually, "Well, I'm not even 14 years old yet. I'm still a child, so it's nothing complicated." "Do you mean, I can do it? Isn't that something a scumbag would say?" However, Cyrilla was quite taken with it. She had never been educated about heterosexual relationships in the world of The Witcher. After traveling to the world of Harry Potter, she found herself alone in unfamiliar territory, without any acquaintances, and preoccupied with survival. She hadn't had the opportunity to consider such matters. Ethan's arrival was almost a beacon of hope in her tumultuous life. For over a year, she had come to accept Ethan's tendency to wander between multiple partners of the opposite sex. This, coupled with the influence of her adoptive father, the White Wolf Geralt, had significantly distorted her understanding of gender relations. She considered Ethan's behavior normal. Even after hearing the term boyfriend and boyfriend, she couldn't help but smile. This reaction surprised Gianna, but she didn't say much. Instead, she gave Ethan a knowing look. "Seeing how you play, I always feel like I'm old and can't keep up with the times." "Sister Gianna doesn't look old at all," Ethan complimented. "Standing together, anyone would say Sister Gianna looks like our older sister." "Therefore, Sister Gianna can definitely join in our fun," Ethan added, leveraging his that and charm. Gianna wasn't angry at his flirtatious words. She just shot him a sharp look before speaking seriously. "Actually, this invitation wasn't just to seek help from the Ministry of Magic. If it were just an ordinary black dragon, I wouldn't have bothered you at all," she continued. "Ethan mentioned that the three of us are all visitors from other worlds found in this one. It seems now that we might have to add one more to that number. I seriously suspect that this black dragon actually comes from another world," she concluded, hinting at Cyrilla's unique situation.